Hey, team players, and welcome back. We're kicking off the night with a massacre in the Meadowlands, and it's going to be a fun and good time. So here we are answering all your starts, stops, waiver wires. This is week 6. This is time to get into championship gear and make everything happen. Let's have a great one. Let's do this. Howdy, guys, and push the right button. You get to see the great Bob.
You know, fun thing that I just saw today as I'm going through the stats is Christian McCaffrey and Kyron Williams both have 0 rushing touchdowns in the red zone over the last 4 weeks, but they each have 3 receiving touchdowns in the red zone over the last 3 weeks. And I think I just wanted to start there because I think that's a really interesting kind of usage rate to kind of see where they're at. Because over the last 4 weeks, they've had only these are guys that you would think would have a massive amount of rushing attempts in the red zone. And it's not even there. The highest on the list is Josh Jacobs and Jahmyr Gibbs, which I'm not shocked about by any imagination. But I was looking at the stats and I thought that was just interesting when we think of 2 guys that are classically like red zone machines, and the way they're getting their red zone touches this year is through the air is just something that I think is just really interesting to think about. Third guy on that list is Ashton Jeanty with 2 receiving touchdowns, another bruiser kind of player who he's just not seeing it. So I think that's interesting to start there, because when we think about what's going on this week, we're going to have a lot of interesting markets to get into, Joe.
We're going to start right here with Wumbo, because when we're talking about the clowns in New England, let's talk about Vrabel.
Hold on. Wumbo, I saw this the other day, and I about lost my mind. And then I lost it even further when I read a news piece from one of the beat reporters that said, Mike Vrabel, and it was like a quote of what he said, and it was like, yeah, we really want to get some more touches for some of these guys, referencing Trevion Henderson and some of the other players on the team. I think we want to get them more kickoff returns. Again, Trevion Henderson can be a great NFL player, but we have a problem here for fantasy purposes. And right now, what his skill set does not match what Mike Vrabel wants it to be. And because it doesn't match what Mike Vrabel wants it to be, he will not see the field. And it doesn't matter how many players are hurt. He will not see the field at valuable time because he just doesn't trust him. And this is an interesting anecdote about Ramondre Stevenson, is that we in fantasy circles always wonder, why is Ramondre Stevenson still seeing this amount of carries, although he fumbles all the time? And people are like, oh, it must be in his contract. It must be in his contract that he has a fumbling in his contract and he's just trying to make money off of it. Just a joke, right? But when you look at it and you say, what does he do well that Trevion Henderson is struggling with? Well, what he's doing well, which Trevion is struggling with, is pass protection. And that is why he's seeing a massive amount of snaps on the field, even though he is probably less filled with talent than Trevion is. Trevion cannot they're trying to keep Drake May upright. They're trying to get more passing in this offense.
Absolutely.
And for good reasons. But they got to teach Trevion Henderson how to pass protect. And I can't believe that after 5 weeks and then all of those weeks that he was at college, that he hasn't learned how to do that. And especially this is coming from a guy.
Actually, that's the thing. Henderson was rated as the best pass blocker.
I don't understand it, Vrabel. I don't understand. And when I saw this, I just about lost my mind. And then as I'm scrolling through all the DFS stuff that I do every week, Wumbo, I saw that Jack Westover was on there. And I'm like, you got to be. I was like, there's no way that these guys get carries. And you watch. One of these guys is going to get a touchdown this week, and we're all going to be sitting on Trevion Henderson and just massively blowing out Vrabel because, this is insanity.
Of course it is. So, Amon, we see your deep dive there. We'll get into there after we hit a couple of the quick hitters. And, Wumbo just starting Bob's juice and flowing early in the episode. We love that.
Jesse, how would you rank in order this week between Jeanty, Judkins, and Cook? Jeanty's a smash play for me this week. When I look at Ashton Jeanty, I see a player on a team that is he's going to be utilized, because there is no reason for him to not be utilized in a game script against this team that they're throwing out there, right? So Tennessee is arguably one of the worst, if not the worst, run defenses statistically in the league. They offer no push on the defensive line at all, which benefits.
That might be for first pick in the draft. We're really breaking that down.
Which benefits the Raiders, because they will just cave in if there's a push on that defensive line. This is a game where Ashton Jeanty could absolutely explode for 30 points again. This is the matchup that you kept Ashton Jeanty for. So this matchup right here is where I'm playing Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty will be a core play in DFS, but he's absolutely going to be in my lineup if I have him this week. Then you go to the other players on that list, and we've talked a lot about Quinshon Judkins, and we said it, for us most of the time, Quinshon Judkins is a play that we are playing. But for me right now this week, I think I could see myself walking into Cook a little bit this week as well. So for me, I think I would rank it as Jeanty, very high up on the list. Then Judkins and Cook are really close together. They're both getting a lot of looks, and I think that the volume for Judkins this week pushes him a little bit higher than Cook, but Cook always has that touchdown upside and multi-touchdown upside in games that could be fairly competitive. So I think there wouldn't be a reason why I wouldn't want to start all three of these guys. If I could only start two, I think it'd be Jeanty and Judkins, but I would highly consider Cook at this point on Thursday.
So my answer for this is, first of all, I think you have three of the top 6 running backs of the week. So but definitely you're right. Jeanty is one. Houston can't stop anything.
Tennessee can't stop anything.
Yeah, this is just bottom line is Jeanty's for the taking. I probably would slightly lean Cook above Judkins.
And that's fair.
But
that's fair.
And that's only because they're coming back from London without a break. I do think there's a chance that the Steelers look better than they are at stopping the run. But that being said, Judkins, as we said on Monday, has the best situational fit out of any running back in the NFL. Team has to play short defense. They don't trust any other running back aside from him. He keeps getting the ball more and more. And there's, as much as Sampson is a 4th-round pick, he's not challenging Judkins for quality touches at all. So the volume's there, but I would definitely go Cook in the 2-hole ahead of Judkins.
This is the fun fact that why Judkins why I'm on Judkins a little bit more is that the Steelers have one of the lowest times of possession this season.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So when I think about how
if this thing were next week, Judkins might be second on my running back list. The only thing that's holding him back is my fear of their time body delay.
I don't really fear that at all. The other aside to that is that Buffalo does have one of the highest times possessions. So you could see them utilizing Cook a little bit more. I think this is a really good question, but I value all three of these guys. I value Judkins just a little bit higher. Amon, this is the reason. This is the thing. You take him out, you're going to be absolutely mad if he does well. If you kept him in, you're going to be absolutely mad that you kept him in. He's a player right now that is so hard to roster, but we have to keep the course. We have to believe that something's going to get better. But right now, week 5, if I'm 1-4, if I'm 2-3, and I have a win staring down at me right now, I'm probably benching him if I have a better player in mind.
It's a must-win mode. I mean,
I'd probably bench him I'd probably bench him in favor of a guy like Michael Pittman, for example. If Michael Pittman is in your flex position, I'd absolutely think about something like that.
I mean, you're in a spot now in your leagues where if you are 4-1 or better, you're pretty much in the playoffs. Like that's just statistically where it's at, and it's a really good feeling. So, but if you're 2 wins or less, you gotta bench. You gotta bench him. You gotta bench him and just lay.
So when I look at this question, Dustin, I just brought up Michael Pittman's name. So who's the stronger start this week, Michael Pittman or Michael Carter? Looking at Michael Carter's probably going to be a hard start this week. All Arizona Cardinals, I think, are going to be a hard start this week. there's news going around. Just if you look up the injury information, this is why I'd hesitate to make this decision now. But the Cardinals, Kyler Murray may not suit up this weekend, and
which would be great.
While that would be great for some people, when you look at the depth chart of Arizona,
for everyone wearing an Arizona Cardinals jersey stats.
When you look at the depth chart of Arizona, the next one up is Jacoby Brissett. And Jacoby Brissett is a type of quarterback that if they don't need it, he could sling it if he wanted to. But I don't feel like it would be beneficial to a guy like Michael Carter. It could in a way, because he would be used as where it could benefit him is that Kyler Murray wouldn't take those red zone touches. So Michael Carter could absolutely replace that and get the red zone touches if they were to move closer to the end zone there. I do think that Carter would be a hard start this week. When I look at Michael Pittman, I have Michael Pittman as an absolutely kind of elite status play this week. Arizona is most likely going to be giving the ball and turning the ball over relatively quickly. I don't see them having a good time of possession this matchup if Jacoby Brissett is there, which means that Jonathan Taylor is probably going to have an at-will approach to this game, which means Michael Pittman, who's one of the better players in the red zone this year, he's going to get looks in the red zone. And I like Michael Pittman over Michael Carter for that reason. And Herbert for me,
a lot this week.
Herbert for me is a good play this week because the running game is in shambles. The offensive line, again, shambles. He's going to have to throw the ball. And when Herbert throws the ball, and he throws the ball a lot, if he gets upwards of 32, 36 kind of throws, I do think that he could absolutely torch this Miami defense. I'm looking at Herbert, hopefully at a 265, 3-touchdown clip, if you believe that the Chargers are going to win this game. If you don't believe the Chargers are going to win this game, then Herbert would be a tough start.
Yeah, no, you're totally right.
But I think that's how I would approach that, Dustin. What's up, Nino? What's happening? Drop Mark Andrews for Mason Taylor. I dropped a player this week in our league with Joe, and I picked up Mason Taylor. I think that Mark Andrews right now, you know what you're getting out of Mark Andrews, and you know that Cooper Rush isn't offering much right now. The value for Mark Andrews comes when Lamar Jackson can move the ball downfield, and the value for Mark Andrews right now is when they get to the 15-yard line. When they can get to the 15-yard line, Mark Andrews is a very valuable piece, and he can catch that dink and dunk touchdown and get into the end zone. He can't run very fast right now. He's getting older. You can see the age. When Lamar comes back, I think that he'll still be on your waiver wire because people are scared of him. So I would drop to pick up Mason Taylor this week. Rico Dowdle, about to bust for 250 yards this week. Number one waiver wire ad. Rico is going to be a stud this week, and is going to be a stud 3 out of the next 5 weeks, I believe. We took a look at his schedule on Monday, and he could potentially be an absolute smash. Absolutely. I remember us talking about Rico last week, and we were saying, pick up Rico. And I can't remember if we said something about the yardage total, but that game was crazy. I don't really watch college ball, but I remember seeing that Trevion is the best pass blocker. Yeah,
he was.
We were talking about this in the offseason. If you absorb any of the offseason content that we did, two of our favorite, two of the rookie running backs that we did like amongst all of the rookie running backs was Caleb Johnson and was Trevion Henderson. We did believe that a guy like Caleb Johnson coming out, having a good season, solid production, and then coming into an offense that needed a solid producer would get good looks to start with. That never happened because the coaching staff, I guess, didn't see something that maybe they saw earlier in the offseason process. With Trevion, he absolutely was a stud pass blocker. But now, for some reason, it's just not happening at the NFL level. Maybe the game is moving too fast. Maybe maybe he's not learning the playbook fast enough, and Vrabel can't trust him. That's the other reason why guys like Ramondre Stevenson still get looks, even if they're fumbling, because the coach trusts him to do the pass protection things and not make the mistakes so that their franchise quarterback isn't on his ass.
Well, that's exactly it. And
I get it.
For some reason, they're trying to become a passing team more so than a running team. It doesn't make sense to me. Again, clown Vrabel, I'm back on the bus with.
So, KJ, my running backs in my Yahoo League are hot garbage. Starts to Henderson, Harvey, Vidal, Sharps, Kendre Miller.
You got to start Kendre Miller, right?
Yeah. So Kendre's a start, and here's why. Kendry's a start because Alvin Kamara picked up an injury designation with an ankle injury. They've been moving Velus Jones up and down from the main roster to the practice squad. When you look at the game that they're going to be playing against New England, New England doesn't let up. In terms of their rush defense, they're like an pretty average run defense. It's not gonna like light the world on fire, right? But it's also not the worst in the league. So you look at it and you say, okay, New England is offering about 13.22 points to running backs overall every week. And where does most of that production come from? Well, it comes at they're getting 14 carries and about 40 yards per game, and then about 3 receptions. Now, you haven't really had to run on New England because you can pass on them. So when you look at that and say, okay, well, what will happen here with New Orleans? I think Kendry's a strong play this week. I'm not expecting too much, but I do think they're going to be able to move the ball against New England, and I do think that Kendre Miller does get a touchdown this week. The other guy that I'm starting this week... I
think this is a classic letdown for New England, and New Orleans actually wins the game.
The other guy that I'm starting this week is Charbonnet. When I look at Jacksonville, again, middle of the road rush defense, they do offer a little bit more in the passing game, so that could be a Kenneth Walker spot. But I do think that Seattle's going to be able to move the ball downfield and is going to get some red zone looks. And I think that's where Zach Charbonnet and Ken Walker will be pretty valuable. I don't expect any of these players to crack 16 total touches. So if you're asking me volumetrically, like which player is going to have the most volume,
I think Miller has a chance to.
But I think Sharbs and Kendre will probably have more volume than the other three.
Yeah.
And I hate that because I love Henderson. Nino. And again, guys, if you're just joining us, feel free to put a question in the chat.
Here's the red and white on Henderson, because we're going to talk about him all the time. It's after his bye. When you have the week to show that you've stepped up, that's the only hope we have for Henderson to be a dude. Until then,
it's gonna come. If you're just joining us, feel free to leave a question in the chat. We do answer all questions here at Local Football Flavor. If you don't hear your question answered right away, we do get to everything. Feel free to come back, watch us on replay, and we'll take it from there. Nino, Flex, Alec Iomanner, Michael Carter, Pacheco, Algier, Harvey. If we want to get ugly, I could also drop someone for Booty Bateman or Ertz. Booty Bateman and Ertz sounds like a law firm, but they are not roster. They are not startable right now. With Cooper Rush, Bateman isn't startable. Ertz is not startable. He's not getting enough production, and Booty is kind of just in no man's land. Booty's in no man's land right now. So when you look at the other side of the coin, Io Manor is a very interesting play. When we look at Io Manor, what you're looking at is a team that is facing one of the sieves in the National Football League in terms of passing, right? So we look at where's that production going to go. Wow. Calvin Ridley is probably going to get the majority of it. Tyler Lockett's going to be on the field. Will we get Io Manor with 3 targets, or will we get him with 7 targets? I do think in a game like this, I do think you will get more targets for Io Manor than the touches for any of those other guys. So I'm on Io Manor this week. And out of that other grouping of guys, it's really tough right now to start Isaiah Pacheco, because when we look at this team, Kareem Hunt, they keep giving the ball to Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt keeps doing the things that he's supposed to do. We also know that Detroit's one of the best in the league in terms of stopping the run, but they also offer about 17 total touches to running backs on the ground. If that's split between Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, that is not good. I don't want that. So when I look at Michael Carter, on the other hand, Michael Carter is facing up against an Indy defense that's letting up about 18 total touches. But I could see Michael Carter and Knight and DeMarcado sharing those touches as well. So that's kind of a very ugly spot to be in. And the same thing goes for RJ Harvey. But the benefit for RJ Harvey is that the Jets are letting up more total touches to running backs than the other two teams. So you have to ask yourself, is this the week that RJ Harvey's going to get more touches? Out of that grouping of guys, you could easily land on Alec Iomanner and Harvey because of the touches. and splitting that amount of touches. If you get an extra touch here for RJ Harvey, it could be good. But you could also land on Michael Carter. So I think at this point on Thursday, out of this grouping of players, I'm on Ioman or on Harvey, but I could easily switch Harvey into Michael Carter come Sunday. How do you feel about that, Joe?
See, I'm firmly on Carter. After what the other running back did, they're not giving him the ball. They're not giving him, you don't. I mean, he was in the doghouse by the end of that game. If he didn't get credit for all those yards before he fumbled entering the end zone, no one would be talking about DeMarco entering into any fantasy circles whatsoever. So Carter is firmly the only one there. And if this team is going to truly take off, they need to do two things. They need to bench Kyler Murray. Well, they just found an excuse to do that. And they need to run the ball again. And it's going to be through Carter. Now, granted, I have no faith in Arizona Cardinals whatsoever. But that would be the answer.
And here's the thing. I think when you look at Michael Carter, if they can't cross the 50-yard line, you could see a stat line from Michael Carter, 14 touches, 40 yards. Something like that. And that's a really
I can also see them just saying you get both roles. We're not putting DeMarco back out there. Why can't I say his name right today?
You can't even say his name. That's really fun. CC, is it wild to consider benching Wilson versus Surtain and playing Shakira? Yeah, I do think it's wild. Here's the thing. When you look at Surtain, you got to ask yourself, is Surtain going to shadow Garrett Wilson? And the answer is probably yes, because they have no other receiving threats on that team that are going to need to have Patrick Surtain deal with them. Okay. Then you look at what Patrick Surtain is doing, and Patrick Surtain is letting up about 7 targets to wide receivers on a per game basis here and around 4 receptions. He can lock down lots of people, but if you're on the framework that Justin Fields is going to pepper him and Mason Taylor with targets in this game, which there's no reason why they shouldn't realistically, then if Garrett Wilson gets 10, 11 targets, he's going to get 5 to 6 receptions. What will he do with them? I'm not entirely sure if he'll get a touchdown this week, but the same goes for a guy like Shakir. Shakir is in a tough matchup. If he draws, Terrell from Atlanta, it's the same. You're getting the same kind of thing. And Shakira is a lesser talent. He's a lesser talent, but on a better team. So while I think most people would suggest to bench Garrett Wilson over and to put Shakira in, I think I'm on Garrett Wilson, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Hard to fight.
I think it's hard to bench him right now. I think it's real hard to bench him right now. Nick, what's happening, man? Start Jaylen Warren over Tony Pollard this week. Joe, what do you think about that first? How do you feel?
So here's the thing. Cleveland has the best rush defense, and that's who Jaylen Warren's going to be running into. The Steelers have shown a grand total of 1 game the entire season where they have won the offensive line, and that was against the Vikings. So don't get me wrong, the Vikings have a decent front, but it's mostly because they can play head games with you, and Flores is a genius. They don't try to play just I have better pieces, move you around. Cleveland has been the number 1 defense on a per-play basis since Nick Schwartz has gotten there like 8 years ago. So, and part of the reason is they can really shut down the Steelers. They do it all the time. Despite the fact they never win in Pittsburgh, they don't allow yardage. So if Warren's going to do anything, it's going to have to be in the passing game. But the other problem we have here is that their pass rush, Cleveland's pass rush, is the best it's been under the Garrett career. So Warren's actually, whoever the running back is, whether it's Warren or Gainwell, it doesn't really matter. They're going to be in on protection more so than not. The play action game that Warren gets a lot of decent looks, which even though I hate that play, general, if you're ever designing a play and you're doing a fake and then giving the ball to the person the fake just went to, you're giving the defense more time to catch the mistake. Just never a good call. Nonetheless, though, Warren is, I would say, as much as I love him, he's going to have a very stifled day. He just is. So I think that Pollard kind of wins by default. So I think
But,
Warren's going to end up somewhere between 15 and 30 in terms of total running backs on the day.
I'm kind of on the opposite side of that, Joe.
Oh.
I'm looking at the stats, and this is just, I know you didn't ask for a deep dive, Nick, but looking at the stats, and even
just gave you one, by the way, Nick.
Even including Jonathan Taylor's great fantasy performance last week, the Oakland Raiders, in the games that they've played so far, you just look at their schedule, right? Patriots, Chargers, Commanders, Bears, Colts. Out of all those teams, Chargers and Colts were probably running the ball a lot, you would think. Well, you look at it and you see and you say, oh, well, I want to know how good is this defense against the run? And the fact of the matter is the Raiders are only letting up about 13 points to fantasy backs on a per game basis. And they're only letting up around 10-ish rushing attempts per game. In order for Tony Pollard to reach that upper echelon of fantasy production, he's going to need to eclipse and go past 16 total touches in this game. And I don't think that that's possible. And while Jaylen Warren is running up against a very solid defense, I think both of these plays are not good this week. I don't think, and just from a structural standpoint of I think there's probably going to be more passing in that Raiders game because the Raiders defense, statistically, you can pass on them. Drake may pass for 46.
Anything against the Raiders. Anything.
Right? So I do think that potentially Pollard will be in a situation to get a touchdown. And I think that's what kind of wins you the day when you think about these players. So just take in mind, it's both of these aren't good plays this week. Both of them are facing up against good rush defenses, but both of them can get a touchdown if their offenses can move the ball. If you think that the Browns are going to be lethargic coming out of the gate and the Steelers are going to be able to take advantage of it, I would put Warren into the lineup, but I'd be worried about Kenneth Gainwell. So Pollard has no real competition outside.
Zero fear about Gainwell.
A now healthy Tony Pollard. You could slot Pollard in, but I don't think either of those guys is a good play this week, to be honest with you.
Quite frankly, I'd be more worried about the rookie coming off of the bye, just like I said about Henderson, than I would about Gainwell.
That's fair. Dropped Godwin for Bourne. Was this a bad move? Was scared of Godwin's injury? I don't think it's necessarily a bad move, Jesse. One of the reasons why
I'm still holding Godwin personally, Jesse, though.
He's picked up even more injury designations as these games have gone on, and he's going to get massive targets when he comes back. Right now, Kendrick Bourne is a play. Right now, Kendrick Bourne will start in your fantasy lineup, and Kendrick Bourne will have the potential to smash.
If I recall, you're in win now mode, Jesse. You got a rough start.
So I don't think from a structural perspective of your team that this is a bad call at this moment in time, because you need a guy that's going to come out and do well. I would see how those injury designations go for the 49ers, but I do think that Kendrick Bourne is a good play against Tampa, who has proven that they can allow a lot of receptions to wide receivers. We know this. This is a fact.
Oh, yeah.
So I do think Bourne is a good play this week. Nick, I couldn't pick up the Steelers D, so playing the Rams D this week, that's not a bad call. I mean, that's the thing. You were burned by the Rams last week. A lot of people were burned by the Rams last week. But when you look at who they're facing this week, Baltimore with Cooper Rush, it's going to be another ugly game. You could look at garbage time touchdowns being a possibility here that can screw you over. But I do think that the Rams are a good enough play this week. Start A.J. Brown over.
And also Pittman. On the record, anyone playing Cincinnati the entire rest of the year is automatically offense number one. Joe Flacco is going to throw 14 interceptions between now and Christmas. Guarantee it.
So just so you guys know, if you just joined us, leave a comment, question in the chat. We'll make sure that we get to it. Local Football Flavor, we do answer every question. We're going to go through all the quick hits and deep dives here. We're going to answer everything. If you don't hear the answer to your question right away and you got to step out, feel free to watch us on a replay. So Beast, the question is, start A.J. Brown over Pittman this week. I think when you look at it from just a standpoint of which one of these plays, if the quarterback smashes, is going to be an absolute smash, and the answer is A.J. Brown. There are some question marks to how many targets that he is going to get in this game. But I do think that A.J. Brown, especially when you consider that the Giants lost Darius Slayton. They lost Malik Neighbors. Now they're trotting out Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson. They got Tyrone Tracy back. They're probably not going to be moving the ball as much as people want them to be moving the ball, unless
they
there's
definitely won't be. That's not a problem.
Unless there's some fluke play. So the problem is with AJ Brown is that while he is one of the players that you could absolutely trot out this week, he's in a position right now where they might not have to pass the ball. They could probably just continue to run it.
Also, it was kind of ugly forcing the ball to AJ Brown last week.
The defense or the offensive line is dealing with some injuries, so that's a benefit for AJ Brown potentially. They did say, "Oh, we want to get AJ Brown the ball more," but the problem is, you're looking at and you're saying the Giants here are sitting at they're offering set again. This is like a Patrick Surtain kind of situation again in a different way. 7 targets to the wide receiver 1 on average a week, and only 4 receptions. If those 4 receptions only amount to 30 yards, AJ Brown sucks this week. But you have to bet. You have to ask yourself who's going to get a touchdown. I do think Michael Pittman's going to touchdown. I do think AJ Brown's going to do well this week enough, but I like Michael Pittman a little bit better, and that's going to be kind of controversial.
I know, I get it. I mean, I'm actually really glad I didn't invest a lot in AJ Brown. There are metrics out there that are indicating that he might be done. He might have lost his step faster than anyone else has.
No, I think he's just losing his mind. I don't think he's lost a step. I think he's losing his mind.
Both can be true.
So, Nick, I've submitted a trade request of Pollard and Pearsall for JCM. Is this giving up too much? My wide receiver room is much stronger than my running back room. Again, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt has burned people on a 1-game sample size before. Okay, he had a good week and then a bad week, then a good week. What will happen this week? I think that this is a lot to give up for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, but it might be the last time to buy him. If he has another good week this upcoming week, you won't be able to get him again. Is this a little much?
Given the fact Eckler is not coming off the injury bus.
Is this enough to get it? Is this enough to get it done? It could be, because it gives that person that extra bonus when Pearsall comes back. I would do it, but I do hate giving up Pearsall. I would do it, but I wouldn't be expecting massive touchdown performances every week, but it looks like he's gotten his head on. It looks like they want to play him, and I like that. So I would do it. I think it's a little much, but I would try to get him. I would maybe think about trying to get him for something else, maybe offering Tony Pollard and a different piece straight up through that. I'd try to keep Pearsall if I could. If Chuba is out, Breece or Dowdle, Chuba will be out. All of the news is indicating
a choice.
All of the news is indicating that Chuba is absolutely going to be out. So when I look at the opportunities that are going to present themselves this week for a guy like Rico Dowdle, right, is Dallas is giving up on average 14 total rush attempts to running backs and about 4 targets. Rico Dowdle could absolutely smash in this. The only thing that could keep Rico Dowdle from smashing in this is the fact that they're down too much. They'd be down too much. This is a matchup that you absolutely want to take advantage of for a guy like Rico Dowdle. The other thing about Breece Hall, right, Joe, is that they're offering a good amount of they're giving up a good amount of yardage to running backs. Denver is not very good against the run, and Denver is not very good against passing running backs either. Both of these are very good plays this week. I try to get both into my lineup. If I could only get one, I'd probably lean on Dowdle, but I'd be hard to bench Breece Hall this week.
Yeah.
KJ, better flex start this week, BTJ or Jacoby Myers? We could walk through the logical fallacy of the Jacoby Myers again for everybody, like we've done multiple times. And it's unfortunate because we really, really like Jacoby Myers, and Jacoby Myers does a lot, and he does it really well. Jacoby Myers is going up against a defense that he should smash against.
He should.
This should be an absolute smash pot for Jacoby Myers. This is a game that will be a smash spot potentially for, like I said, Ashton Genty as well. If Ashton Genty is smashing, Jacoby Myers probably isn't. And the problem here is that Jacoby Myers is getting enough receptions, but really not, it's not really worth, those receptions aren't really worth much because they're not happening where they need to happen at, because Geno's turning the ball over too much.
Gina's
So Jacoby
Myers too hard.
Jacoby Myers is absolutely a play this week, but the problem is that we don't know legitimately what those receptions will turn into. It could be 3 receptions on 12 targets or 4 receptions on 7 targets for 40 yards and maybe a touchdown. BTJ is in a similar spot. The reason why you might like BTJ a little bit more is that you just saw Emeka Puka crush Seattle in a very competitive game. So you could absolutely see Brian Thomas Jr. do this. But again, Trevor Lawrence is not against throwing the ball to Diami Brown, is not against throwing the ball to Travis Hunter. So while Brian Thomas Jr. will still be elevated and have a massive amount of targets, that yardage might not be there. Although, you got to ask yourself, is there going to be some touchdown upside? Seattle was letting up more touchdowns to the wide receiver one than Tennessee is. So I would lean BTJ in a more competitive matchup than Jacoby. Joe, how do you feel about that?
I love Jacoby
Jacoby
Myers.
has a great matchup.
I love Jacoby Myers, and I can't stand the way BTJ is playing. I also think that when you look at it realistically, Seattle probably has the best defense in the NFL. Tennessee doesn't. I mean, you're getting you're getting the lower grade talent in the better matchup is versus better talent in a horrible matchup. It's a classic sig there. It's what's a valid question. I go Myers.
It's not a really horrible matchup. It's not a great matchup, but it's going to be a slightly more competitive game, you would think.
Seattle's beating Jacksonville. They're going to beat them handedly.
I agree with that, but I do think it's going to be slightly more competitive. I'm on BTJ. Joe's on Jacoby. You have the reasons why. I think that both could find their way into your lineup this week. Jesse, who would you put in the flex between Debo, Judkins, and Sutton? That's a good one. I think if I had to lean on a guy, I would lean on Judkins there.
Yeah.
Although Debo's an interesting play. It depends on what Terry's doing and all that stuff. Yeah, I'm on Judkins. I like him this week a lot.
That gives me 14-17 with 2 Judkins touchdowns.
Waller or Mason Taylor this week. So all the news from Waller says that Waller is going to keep increasing his snap share. And we hope so because he's not getting a lot of receptions, but he is getting touchdowns.
Yeah.
You've got to think that those touchdowns aren't going to last, whereas Mason Taylor is getting volume. This week, he's up against a defense that he should continue to get volume against. So when I look at this and I say, all right, where are we going with Mason Taylor here? I just want to check the sheets here. Mason Taylor, the problem is that Denver does play the tight end decently well because most teams don't have to pass to their tight end as much as some other teams. So with Denver playing tight end well, is Mason Taylor the guy you want? He should be a volume play this week, but where will that volume take them? That's a big question. And then when we look at a guy like Waller, who has absolutely great touchdown upside, but again, going against a defense where they don't have to utilize them, where do we land on that? I think that I'm on Mason Taylor over Waller this week because I think the volume is going to favor Mason Taylor a little bit more. Nick, start Bowers or Kraft this week. Kraft is a smash start. I don't think. And
Bowers is hurt. I mean, if you watch the film, Bowers is messed up.
Cincinnati is one of the worst teams against the tight end. Okay, you're looking at potentially at least 10 points for Tucker Kraft, and why I say this is that I like Romeo Doubs this week as well, but I think that Tucker Kraft is a guy that again Jordan Love will lean on when they get to the red zone a little bit. You just look at all the metrics, and Tucker Kraft fits what Jordan Love likes, and if Jordan Love's going to have a good game here, it's going to go to Tucker Kraft, it's going to go to Romeo Doubs, and it's going to see some Jacobs. I think I'm on Kraft this week, and I wouldn't even think about Brock Bowers right now, to be logistically honest with you. DK or QJ this week. Jesse, I'd watch the injury report because QJ came out with a hamstring injury. I would see if that's a serious hamstring injury or if that's a hamstring injury that they're just resting and seeing what's going to.
He's a third-year guy. He doesn't give Veterans Days yet, But Jesse, it's amazing how similar that this question is, and it shouldn't be, but it is. Mm-hmm. Both the offensive lines can't protect an immobile quarterback, and the immobile quarterback's getting hit way too much. Both of them are playing against defenses that are daring you to throw it over the top on them because your offensive line can't hold up long enough. And basically, it comes down to this. QJ is hurt and DK ain't. Other than that, it's basically trying to tell me which shade of gray are we looking at? Kind of gray or kind of mostly gray?
I mean, Joe, that's a legitimately good way of thinking about this, is that I think both are good plays. The problem is that which one do you think will go over the top?
I don't think they are necessarily good plays. I think they're both going to be in the mid-20s.
No, I mean, they're good wide receiver 3 plays this week. Like if I'm looking at wide receiver 3 and I'm looking at these two guys staring at me and somebody said,
well, I'm not buying either for DFS.
If QJ is healthy, I'm playing QJ.
Probably.
If QJ is healthy, I'm playing him. But right now it's not trending that he might be as healthy as you want him to be. And here's the thing. Like you said, Joe, with those offensive lines, I do think that Herbert is going to pass the ball a good bit here. And I do think that when we look at time of possession and stuff, the Chargers hold the ball more because they had Omari and Hampton on average to move that ball. But in the last game where Omari and Hampton got hurt midway, third quarter, they still had the ball for 34 minutes. And the Steelers are just not holding the ball enough. You could absolutely see DK take the top off like he did against Minnesota. But I do think that they stopped throwing to him at some point in time in the game, and I don't know why. QJ is always going to be a good enough play. If he's hurt, though, you play DK.
Yeah, to me, that's an injury one. But you are right. If all things were equal, I'd probably pick QJ too.
Wumbo, since I'm missing Bucky and Pearsall, I need to start one more receiver and one flex in PPR between Kamara, Ridley, Golden, Waller. I have Golden and Kamara set right now, and I'm projected even without a kicker and 2 and 3. I like Ridley this week. Again, everything that I said to you earlier about Alec Manor is true about Calvin Ridley. It seems that his week 4 numbers were seriously due to an injury. He wasn't utilized as much. He came out of the game, and he was injured. We saw this. He was injured. Comes back last week. Gets the volume, gets the touches, looks good. Then you go to Kamara. I'm really worried about Kamara with an ankle injury. Okay. Running backs
going this week.
Running backs his age, I think it's going to be a little bit problematic for him to get back up to speed where you would want him to be. The only thing that you can kind of look at as being good is that, again, the New England Patriots let up about 4 targets to running backs on average, which is, top 8 in the league in terms of what that is. And that's a good spot for him if they're going to throw the ball to Kamara. That's where he makes most of his juice. So I could see that as being a good play. And again, Matthew Golden for me, Wumbo, is potentially a great start this week against a seriously bad organizational defense here. So
no, I do, Bob. That's true, but
Golden's
not in the doghouse, guys. I can't emphasize this more.
He might not get that volume, which is very problematic. So for me, I think I'd probably land on Ridley and maybe Kamara, because there could potentially be some volume there if he's healthy. If Kamara's healthy and ready to go, it's Ridley and Kamara for me. If not, I'd roll the dice and put out Ridley and Golden. But I think Golden's a big dice roll, and Waller has better touchdown equity and upside than Golden does right now. So just take that into consideration. If you're looking for touchdown equity, the answer is probably Darren Waller. And it's going to be weird to start a tight end in your flex, but I think that's a reasonable decision to make this week, to be honest with you.
I think I'd start Golden over Ridley, though.
Like I said, Ridley and Golden would probably be the guys that I would start right now on Thursday. But if Kamara was trending to play and healthy, then I'd probably play Kamara and Ridley. I do think that, again, the defense for the Vegas is not very good against the pass, and they're not very good against the wide receiver 1. So
it's sort of like that. Vegas, this isn't good. You can just end it there.
I want to start Ridley the next 3 weeks, but he likes hurting us with all of his drops. He absolutely does.
That's my point.
If you guys are just joining us right now, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment
By the
section.
way, love the quick hitter system, guys. Doing great,
every
Josh.
question here at Local Football Flavor. We have quick hits and deep dives. Deep dives, we go into a little bit more depth. Quick hits, we try to hit very quickly. We might extend it a little bit more. If you don't hear your answer right away, feel free to watch us on the replay. Josh, quick hit, PPR. Start one tight end. Start one wide receiver, one tight end, one flex. BTJ, Ridley, Golden, Ja'Cory Krosky, Merritt, Henderson, Carter, Warren, McBride. Leaning BTJ, McBride, and plus possibly Warren or JCM at the flex. I'd keep a careful eye of the Kyler Murray injury. I'm not quite sure how I'd feel about McBride.
I bet McBride does better without Murray.
Is that Jalen Warren or Tyler Warren? I think that I need that.
Yeah, because I'm definitely going Bill over Jalen Warren, the running back from Pittsburgh. I'm picking the running back from Washington over top of him.
I'm definitely going Bill over them as well. But I do want to know if that's Tyler Warren. So Joe, keep your eye on the chat.
Probably is Tyler because he wrote it first in the tight end section. So
yeah, if it's Tyler Warren, I think you can't bench Tyler Warren right now, especially against Arizona. So I'd probably lean Warren in my tight end spot if that is Tyler Warren, and then Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt at my flex spot, and BTJ is reasonable. BTJ and Ridley should get targets. Touchdowns could be a problem. I might lean on both tight ends this week. This could be a week where you could lean on a double tight
end week. We're getting close to that
and be successful. I think it could be a tight end week. Jesse, Algier, Miller, or Gainwell this week. Like Joe said last week about Gainwell could have been and probably was just Jalen Ward was a late scratch. Gainwell was in. They had him. They played him. Caleb Johnson wasn't up to speed. This week they had a week of rest. Gainwell might.
Well, that's the other reason. They knew there was a bye coming. So if Gainwell got burnt out, no one cares.
Gainwell may or may not get good usage this week. I think it's still Kendre Miller, but I'd keep my eye on that injury to Kamara. If Kamara's out, it's definitely Kendre Miller. If Kamara plays,
Kendre Miller regardless.
It's probably still Kendre Miller. Got an offer for my Pickens for Nico. I have CD, Debo, CJ, or QJ, Ridley, and Worthy. So you mean you're trading Pickens for Nico Collins? Joe will never tell you not to.
Yeah, no, the other reason I'm telling you to do that is because you don't want to have both Cowboys.
One guy I was looking at for deep leagues was Sterling Shepard. He's owned in under 5% of leagues and getting 5 targets a week, and Evans, Bucking, and Godwin looking like they might all be out. Sterling Shepard is a very reasonable guy to pick up as a deep stash. You look at how he's being used in this offense, and he's being used legitimately by Baker Mayfield. It's not like he's just getting like terrible volume or something like that. He's actually being used. He's catching touchdowns, and he has 191 yards on the season. So, I mean, he has 17 receptions, 15 targets, or 24 total targets this year. I mean, he's not a great player, but he will be utilized in the interim because you have all of those wide receivers injured, and that's why I make it Puka.
They got to give the ball to someone other than
Puka. A guy that you got to play. This is the week where Cade Otton could be interesting if they decide to use him.
I was about to say he's been disappointing given those injuries.
Yeah. Love the name. Sup. Who do you guys like this week? Knicks or Danny Dimes? Joe, lead it off. Who do you like, Knicks or Danny Dimes?
Knicks.
You like Bo? Bo's a good play this week. Bo's a good play this week. The thing is, though, is that they could lean a little bit on Jake or on Dobbins this week. They're going to have to utilize him. I like Daniel Jones because the Cardinals do let up a lot of passing attempts. The only problem is they don't let up a lot of passing touchdowns. So Danny Dimes has that little extra oomph in the rush game, but JT could take it away. I think that Danny Dimes is a good play this week, and I think both are interesting plays. I would tend to lean a little bit on Danny Dimes.
My reason for Knicks is with Danny Dimes, you need him to steal one of JT's touchdowns for it to really pay off.
Yeah.
And Knicks, you don't need that.
Yeah, Knicks, you realistically don't need that. but you have to ask yourself how competitive is it going to be. But here's the thing about Bo Nix, and this is the thing that's against Danny Dimes, is that while Arizona is letting up a lot of pass attempts, passing yards, and pass completions, the Jets are letting up one of the higher passing touchdowns. Okay, so they're the fifth highest in letting up passing touchdowns on the year to quarterbacks. So if you think that Danny Dimes won't steal a JT touchdown, then you absolutely should start Bo Nix. I traded MHJ, Alejandro, and Harvey for JJ last week. They just dropped Harvey for Haskins. Beautiful. This is a beautiful trade. This is what we want to see. Now, if you want to go pick up Harvey, pick him back up again, and you just got JJ for MHJ. That's perfect. Go pick him back up. Come back home, baby. Come back home. That guy clearly is not thinking. July, trade JSN and HN for CD and Jacobs. I would.
Yes. Give me CD.
Josh Jacobs' schedule is looking kind of juicy coming up, guys. And CD is going to come back and take on a good
July, as long as you already have at least 3 wins, do that trade because you can eat CD's injury.
Yeah. If you're sitting there though, and you have 2 wins or 1 win, I think you keep JSN and HN.
So my gut reaction was if you have the wins in your pocket already, yes.
But here's the other bonus, July. Here's the other bonus is that even if you're sitting at 2 and 3, getting Jacobs now, you're buying Jacobs after the bye week. So you can just play him every single week now. He is a play every single week. So you're going to have to worry about the bye week for the other 2. And you've already experienced the bye week with Josh Jacobs. Keep your eye on the CD injury, though. If you don't like that, see if you can just get Josh Jacobs. If you don't want to get CD because you're worried about the injury.
If you're 3 wins or more, I'm pulling that trigger because I want CD.
Yeah, definitely crushed it. Should I start the Steelers defense versus the Browns or the Eagles defense against the Giants? Again, this is a good decision to have. People just got burned by the Rams last week, and they might say, should I go after the Eagles this week? And I think that's legitimately the question that a lot of people are going to be asking themselves and being like, well, what should I do?
Bob doesn't believe in this whole – first of all, by the way, the Steelers are also my suicide pick this week. So I'm kind of all in on the Steelers. But Bob doesn't believe in this layover coming back from London without a week off. There's a reason – they have always.
We've never seen it. We've never seen it. That's the problem. We've never seen it.
Yeah, they've always. Well, there's a reason they've always done it,
right? And that's an issue that we have never seen before. But that's why I like Judkins because running backs typically aren't going to need that much in terms of a layover. They're just going to go. They're just going to give them 27 rush attempts. So,
but if it doesn't work and you have a guy in his second start trying to throw with the pass rush that the Steelers could get, I think you're more likely. Oh, dude, I don't sort of say it because the Giants are the exact same situation. Yeah, I probably am going with the Eagles because in 4 days, how do you get a rookie ready for that Eagles front?
Yeah, I'm not sure that's why I'm on the Eagles. That's why I'm on the Eagles. The Eagles could be a red herring, but I think I'm on the Eagles this week.
Even though the Eagles are on the road, I think I would do that.
Down bad on the running back. What do you guys think about this trade? McBride for Olave and Hubbard. I wouldn't do that, Don, because we don't know if Hubbard's healthy. You'd be trading McBride for Olave right now and hoping that Hubbard is healthy. That a trade for me. You should be able to get somebody who is currently playing because if you're down bad on running back, I'm assuming that your win total is kind of it's kind of tricky for you right now.
But I also think that's pretty fair about where McBride should be graded.
Yeah, McBride is still
a top 5 tight end.
He's still a top 3 tight end. So when I look at it and I say Olave gets volume and Shaheen might get traded, Hubbard's hurt, and we saw Rico Dowdle explode. I wouldn't do that trade. I'd try to go find another running back. Maybe I'd go try to find and see what's going on with the Kenneth Walker owner. I'd definitely try to buy David Montgomery if I could. McBride for Olave. McBride for somebody like Montgomery and somebody else a little bit less than Olave. I think I'd like better right now because Chuba Hubbard's injury, it does scare me. If you would have asked me this a couple weeks ago, I would have said, sure, I'd do that. But with Chuba's injury, I'm very concerned about it. And Jordan, thanks for agreeing. Would not do that. If you're down bad on running backs, Hubbard isn't a good place to look. Absolutely. What's happening, Recon? League altering trade was made by me. All right, let's check
Love
it out.
that.
I sold Nico and K9 and Sharps for Saquon, AJ Dillon, and Jacoby. I also sold Jane Daniels for Rashad and Waddle. New team is looking like Dak, Saquon, ETN, Waddle, Ladd, Ingram, and Rashad. I have Jacoby, Addison, Ridley, Daniel Jones, RJ Harvey, and Mason Taylor. Recon, I think the trade is interesting, and here's why. When you look at Saquon Barkley has not put together a game that looks like Saquon is like the elite Saquon game that we want. That could be coming this week. That could be coming tonight. So when we look at it and we say, Nico had the bye week this week. You sold K9 and Sharps, which is the totality of that running back situation. So now you gave that situation for one other player to deal with on a week-to-week basis. And then you took on AJ Dillon in case Saquon gets hurt. I don't like that piece. I think that piece is kind of useless at this moment in time. And you got Jacoby Myers. I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. I do like Nico and K9's production. And
I wouldn't have done this one, Recon, but I get why you did.
And when I look at the JD trade, is very interesting to me because you went out and you got Waddle, who could be an elite option moving forward, at least for the next 6 weeks. And then Rashad White is absolutely going to be an elite option until Bucky Irving comes back.
I definitely think you won the JD trade a lot more.
I like that trade. The other one, I probably would have asked for something different than AJ Dillon, but I understand why you did it. But I do think that it makes your team pretty good. When we think about your whole team, now you can move Ladd in and out if you want, because you have Addison, Jacoby, and Ridley. And I think that that's a reasonable kind of decision to make with Dak there. There's probably some other trades that you absolutely could make as well, ETN probably being one of them. Quincy, would you drop Kupp for Tyrone Tracy, or would you drop Vidal instead of Kupp? I probably wouldn't drop Cooper Kupp, and I know that that's kind of weird for me to say that. Because I'm not a huge Cooper Kupp fan, but he is getting a decent amount of, first read looks for a guy of his age and his ability. That's going to be good for Cooper Kupp. What will those targets and things turn into? I'm not quite sure, but he's getting about 4.2 touches per game. But
you definitely want Tyrone Tracy on your roster, though.
Not really a great start, though. What I ask of you, Quincy, to think about with Vidal is that Vidal and Haskins, they don't even know which one they want to start yet. And the rumor is that they could go out and they could get a running back if they thought that Hampton's injury was going to go for a longer period of time, and they were worried about that. Kamani Vidal and Haskins, and this is why I worry about them. I said this on Monday. When you go in and you look at what happened to that offensive line, that offensive line has gotten eviscerated by injuries. This is like the 7th straight year where they've gotten eviscerated by injuries. And while there are some running backs that can overcome that, is Vidal the guy? Because if Vidal was the guy, they probably wouldn't have went out and got Omarion Hampton and Najee Harris. If Haskins,
he's definitely not the guy. It's just that how much volume will he get here?
If I'm looking at
personal take is that Vidal was there before Harbaugh arrived. Because Harbaugh was at Michigan.
No, Vidal was a rookie last year.
Oh, okay. Sorry, correction.
Vidal was a rookie last year. Yeah.
Nonetheless, I think he goes with his own Michigan man. He seems like that kind of guy.
Yeah.
But so to answer your question, I would drop Vidal for Tracy.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably try to get Tracy on my team, but I would not start him this week, I don't think, but you could start him this week.
No, you're not starting him tonight, no.
Yeah,
but you want him on your roster.
For your team, I wouldn't. I would probably drop Vidal instead of Kupp. But it's always, like I said to you on Monday and weeks before, it's always good to have the extra running back. So if you still want to do that, that's fine. You could totally drop Kupp. You're not going to win a week with Cooper Kupp at this moment in time.
But you might win a week with Vidal.
You could win a week with Vidal. So, yeah, you could drop Kupp, but I gave you the reasons why you might not want to. Wumbo, I tried to make some big trades in the 14-team league since I'm 5-0, but I couldn't get anything done. I thought of HN and Njoku for Bucky and Warren, so I upgraded tight end and maybe a side grade at running back. If you can afford it, here's the thing, though. I am really concerned about Bucky right now. We have gotten no good news about Bucky, and the fact that I own him in 3 leagues, and the fact that I have him in a lot of best ball leagues tells me that he's probably more hurt than he should be. So
Mr. Negative Nancy over there.
So keep that in mind. But again, when he comes back, his talent is next level. So I would ask you, is Warren what you want? Because if Warren is what you want, then I would just make a trade for Tyler Warren. Your team is capable of doing that. I would just make a trade for Tyler Warren if that's who I wanted. I don't really feel like
you're seeing the Njoku get sort of cut off, or you just change it out of Bucky. But when Bucky's on, Bucky's on.
Yeah, I mean, Njoku with Dylan Gabriel, you cannot tell me that Dylan Gabriel all of a sudden is going to feel so comfortable over the next 3 weeks that he's going to throw deep bombs to Jerry Jeudy. That's probably not going to happen.
No, Jerry Jeudy's the most overrated receiver in football.
It is a very strong likelihood. And nobody believes that either, because you look at Jerry Jeudy's salary this week and it's mega low. You look at this tight end room and you say, well, there's 2 respectable, athletic tight ends who are on the field, who can block, who can catch. You have a young quarterback who is seeing the field, but seeing it nervously, and is going to get a lot of reps and has a running back that's going to move the ball down the field. It's very reasonable to say that Njoku turns this around. And Njoku
definitely turns this around.
I don't think it's necessary to go out and get Tyler Warren, and I absolutely wouldn't trade Achane and Njoku in to Bucky and Warren, because we're just not sure what Bucky's injury is like. And the cost of Bucky, he's probably not going to play this week. He's definitely not going to play this week from what I heard. So the cost of Bucky next week will be even cheaper in my mind, because the value has not shifted right now. And then he has his bye week coming up, week 9. So if you go out and buy Bucky now in week 6, well, you're eating the injury week 6. Then you're eating the bye week 9, and you might get those 2 games. It's the same kind of Nico Collins situation that happened last year with the injuries and the buys, and then you could buy him a little bit later. I do think you could buy Bucky next week for a little bit cheaper. And that's coming from a guy who owns Bucky. Nino, Achane swap for JSN. I can afford giving up a running back, having JT, Bijan, Achane, Benson, Sharps, and Kendre. With Bijan, already having the bye week, yeah, I could see you being capable of moving on from that. I'm just going back up to see what that trade was, Nino. So, I don't know, man. If I was swapping running back for a wide receiver, JSN would absolutely be on my radar. And an HN for JSN swap, I think, is fair. I think it's fair. I think I would do it because the wheels on Miami will fall off eventually, and JSN looks good. But what I want to say though about Seattle is the rainy season is coming. So look at how many home games they have. JSN in the rain could be a good play, but they might not throw it as much. I think it's interesting to think about. I would probably do that. How do you feel about that, Joe?
I've been telling you guys for a long time, it's time to get rid of the Dolphins. I'm standing by
Recon, I feel like Waddle will be a top 12 wide receiver rest of the season because without Hill, Waddle has been averaging 18.5 points per game. I think it's reasonable.
That's the September numbers.
I think it's
reasonable.
Don't get me wrong.
Waddle's the only one of the Dolphins I actually want, but yeah. I don't want to be invested in Waddle where he needs to be a first or second receiver.
When you look at, I don't mind that, Recon. And here's kind of the thing that Joe is talking about. Typically speaking, every year, the Miami Dolphins score well in September and then start to fade as the season goes on when they play the northern opponents.
And they're going to hit a hard cliff when that coach gets fired at Thanksgiving.
I just want to talk about that schedule to kind of allay your fears a little bit about that, right? So looking at the schedule, Dolphins play the Chargers this week. That's a good spot for Waddle. Then they play the Browns. That's an absolutely good spot for Waddle. But then this is where it gets interesting. This is where Joe's mindset of, weather affecting the Dolphins is.
Tom, I don't think playing the Browns is a good spot for Waddle. I think that's a horrible
but listen.
Browns shut people down.
Then they play the Falcons, which could be a bad matchup for Waddle. Then they play the Ravens, which will be a smash matchup. Then they play the Bills at home. Then they play the Commanders. They play the Commanders at home. Then they play the Saints at home. Then December 7th, they play the Jets in New York, and Sauce Gardner's not that good, guys. Then they play the Steelers at the Steelers December 15th. That's going to be rough. Then they play the Bengals. That's rough. They play the Bengals at home. Then they play the Dolphins in your then they play the Buccaneers at home in your championship weekend. So I do believe that schedule does.
I mean, all comes down to they fire their coach. If the coach isn't there, they're done.
Mentality a little bit.
Waddle's useless without the coach.
AJ Brown, the Dunze, Pickens, Rice, Jacoby. I don't even think you need JSN, but if I can toss JSN here and then move Pickens and Jacoby for something to upgrade like my tight end position or something like that, I would think about that. But if I could trot out a Dunze, JSN, Pickens, and Rice, and yes, you heard me, I didn't say AJ Brown. If I could trot out JSN, Odunze, Pickens, and Rice on a weekly basis from week 6 on, I'm absolutely wanting to do that. I think that's a really good spot for you to be in. You could.
Which means you need AJ Brown to have a go off week so you can move him.
Yeah.
But let's after KJ's here.
Yeah, after this, we'll answer some of the deep dive, guys. Again, if you're just joining us here at Local Football Flavor, we do answer every question. If you don't hear your answer, feel free to watch us on replay. We do answer all of them. KJ, quick hit here, and then we'll jump into the deep dives. Should I drop Seahawks defense for Rams defense or stand pat? Only considering if I play BTJ. Don't like playing guys that I have against my starting defense. Here's the thing, KJ, about that mentality, right? Is that sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So, for example, BTJ could go off for 120 yards and 10 catches and still score 22 points, and that defense could still score 7 points because they don't put it in the end zone. The probability and the likelihood of that happening is not high, but going to the Rams I think the Rams are a good play this week. I thought it last week as well. But again, they're a good play this week against a team that's struggling to move the ball. The only thing is that how many turnovers do you think they would be capable of generating? Trevor Lawrence is capable of generating a good amount of turnovers. Cooper Rush is capable of generating a good amount of turnovers. So if you have that trepidation about starting BTJ against the Seahawks,
I'd rather start against Baltimore.
Go for the Ravens. I think Rams against Ravens. I think Rams are in a spot where they could absolutely produce, but they let us down last week in a divisional matchup. This is obviously not a divisional matchup, so we'll see what happens there.
But the other thing is the Rams got that extra time to recover, and there's something to that.
Yeah, that's important. All right, I'm on. Thank you for the deep dive. I'm glad we're getting into it now, about an hour after. So let's get into it. I'm on.
That's why I try to get into it. So.
Who should I start this week? Haskins, Shakir, or Jennings? So I haven't seen the news yet if Juwan is starting. He's still dealing with ankle and rib injuries. And so as it goes, his shoulder can't, he's still dealing with all this stuff. I don't think that a guy like Jennings is going to be capable of hitting your starting lineup this week, all things considered. Now, when I look at the other players, Haskins and Shakir, we just broke this down as the episode went on, Aman, about a guy like Haskins. Haskins, if he's the number one running back, right, on this team, again, you're splitting those carries, but the Chargers are running the ball about 23 times per game, okay? Overall across the whole season at a high point of 27, low point of 22. So you look at it and you say, if they split 22 carries, not accounting for any of the touches in the passing game, but if they split 22 carries, how's that split going to be? 60-40?
Most, it's going 15 to the higher one.
Okay. So at most, the best number that one of those backs will get, like you said, Joe, is about 15 total carries, which is the number that makes you want to start a running back. Is this matchup a matchup that can be taken advantage of? Yes. It's a matchup that can be taken advantage of and probably to a degree will be. But again, you have an
it
issue
requires
here.
you to be on the same page as Harbaugh, though, and having Haskins be the right running back.
Right. So when I look at it and I say Miami lets up about 17 rush attempts on average each game, and they give up a lot of fantasy points to fantasy running backs. They face some good ones, right? And they face some average ones. You saw Rico Dowdle pop off, and this is the Vidal versus Haskins. Whichever one of them is getting the lion's share of the carries is probably going to be worth starting. You guys just heard me say something about Vidal to drop Cooper Kupp pick up the player, keep Vidal, and you could go either way on that one. But I do think that one of these running backs will be valuable. It all depends on which one. And if you have the stability in your lineup to take the L on Haskins if he misses, then you absolutely could put Haskins into your lineup. For example, if you are starting
Haskins is the ceiling shoot for the moon play.
If you are starting Tyler Warren, Amon-Ra St. Brown, guys like Michael Pittman, Ashton Genty, players like that, then yes, you can absolutely throw Haskins into the lineup. But Haskins' floor could potentially be dangerously low.
Yeah, you can't be using if you're using JMO.
If you're trotting out, for example, right? If you're trotting out a lineup that consists of DeAndre Swift, Ramondre Stevenson, and Isaiah Pacheco, you absolutely can't have Haskins in your flex or anything like that. And you'd start Haskins over many of those guys. If you're looking at wide receivers, for example, and you're out there and you're about to start Zay Flowers or, Xavier Worthy or DJ Moore, yeah, I don't know. I think you kind of would have to kind of shoot for the moon at that point in time because those players have a low floor. You would just have a low floor week. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, Mom, what we're getting to is
a moonshot.
Shakir is a high floor guy. Haskins is a no floor guy, but a high ceiling. So it's going to look at the rest of your roster here as far as the answer. But you asked a couple follow-up questions, Bob, if you want to click on those too. As part of the deep dive here.
Yeah, I'd be on Haskins, Amon, for the upside. But if you don't,
I'd be on the floor. I'd be on Shakir.
If you think that you're gonna need points to win, Shakir is a solid enough play. He doesn't really go up above like 100 yards a lot, and he's not really the touchdown upside that people want him to be. Also, should I try to say high on Jake Ferguson? I have Goddard on my bench. No,
I would definitely do that because Goddard is close enough, and I also think Ferguson is vastly outkicking his coverage.
Goddard is absolutely one of those players that is, if he's asked, whatever he's asked to do, he does it, and he does it well. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I've told you, I believe back in week 2 or week 3, that Goddard's one of my guys. If I'm selling Ferguson, and here's the thing, guys, and this is why I am leery. And Joe said, he thinks that Ferguson's vastly, outselling his coverage here. In 5 games, he is the tight end that has earned the most touches per game, 8.2 touches per game. So you look at that and you see, okay, from a fantasy perspective, he's absolutely clearing most tight ends outside of Darren Waller, okay, by at least 4 points in points per game. You would think that when CD comes back, that those touches may normalize back into 6 touches a game. But he's showing, and they're showing, that they can be elite enough and they're moving the ball downfield good enough that Ferguson's going to be a fantastic play the rest of the season as long as he stays healthy. The only way that I move Ferguson is if I can move into a running back or a wide receiver that is going to help me, because Goddard will produce good enough fantasy weeks at times. It's just a dealer's choice kind of mentality here. He's not getting the touches. Okay. He's getting on average around 4 touches. Okay. And when you look across all tight ends, that is 23rd over the course of the whole year. And again, this is accounting for guys that have maybe played 1 or 2 games. But even if you do that and you take all that out and you take out the players that played only 1 game or 2 games, you're looking at that he's, in terms of touches, he's tight end like 18. But he can do a lot with what he's given. You think about this, and this is the weird thing, Joe, about a guy like Dallas Goedert, okay? Just sorting some stats and saying, in totality, Jake Ferguson has 41 total touches. Dallas Goedert has 15. Whole season, okay? 4 games to Jake Ferguson's 5 games. Then you look at fantasy points per game. And you see that Dallas Goedert is 5th and Jake Ferguson is 2nd. And that's because of Darren Waller up there. So he's getting so few touches, but he's doing so much with those touches. So he's just a dealer's choice kind of play every single week. If you have him, you start him, depending on how the matchup is. But again, if you're selling Jake Ferguson, I'm selling Jake Ferguson. If I'm looking for a high point, I'm looking for, maybe I want to go out and buy Rashee Rice, and I want to get back some other pieces. That's something that I would think about. I wouldn't just trade Jake Ferguson for, like, you might even want to trade him for a guy like Montgomery and a piece, something like that to stabilize a running back room if you're worried about your running back room. Looking that you're starting Haskins and you're thinking about starting Shakir and Jennings, it looks like you probably need some help there. And putting Goedert into your lineup isn't going to kill you. It's not going to be stable enough, but it's not going to kill you on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, I'm selling to get the better piece.
Value right now. He does. I wouldn't sell him, but if I need it, if I was stable in my running back position and I had floaters at wide receiver, I probably wouldn't sell him. But if my running back room isn't stable and I could go out there right now and sell Ferguson for pieces like David Montgomery, or I could potentially go out and get and build a package to go out. Like if I took Jake Ferguson and I took Shakir and I said, how much more is it going to cost me to get into a guy like Josh Jacobs? That's kind of the trade that I'm looking for. If I have an elite tight end like Jake
Ferguson, doing it enough.
I'm not doing a 1-for-1, and I don't want a 2, and I might not want a 2-for-1 back for Ferguson. I might say, here's Ferguson, here's Waddle. What will that get me? Here's Ferguson, here's Rico Dowdle. What will that get me? Here's Ferguson, here's a piece. What will that get me? Will that get me somebody more stable? That's kind of the viewpoint that I have on Jake Ferguson right now. Keep him if you want to keep him. He doesn't need to be sold. But if you do want to sell him, I'd be selling him plus something to get into a piece that is more stable. It's going to cost you, but I think it's the smart way of going about it. I could also bench Travion and start Haskins and one of those wide receivers. I don't see it. If
you have to start Travion, giving your options.
If this is a full point PPR, Shakir has a solid floor of like 8.
I would go Travion Shakir.
15, 16. If you think Travion's ceiling can beat Shakir's ceiling, you could think about that. Just let me look up some things, Joe, as you get to the next question. I'm looking up something here. I want to check on some ceilings.
All right. So for KJ's deep dive here, should I drop Bashal Tootin or Troy Franklin for Isaiah Davis? It's a good chance Brees gets traded. All right, KJ, this is a broader element that I have with real-life NFL trades and the deadline. This type of time of the year, especially if you're a beat reporter for a team that is not very good and or is wildly disappointing, your job is still to get clicks. That is what you are paid for. So they make up crap. Brees Hall is not getting traded, period. So therefore, I do not see where the value of doing this is. There's always going to be people, especially in New York, that need to be the ones who are just putting out different degrees of crap. And I do not want to move my fantasy team because of New York clickbait. And that's effectively what you would be doing here as a starting point. That being said, if you had to cut one or the other, I would cut Franklin.
Okay, so I just want to.
Who I'm picking up.
So before I answer this question, KJ, Shakir has like a 3-point ceiling higher than Trevion this week. Again, their floors are very similar. Their averages are very similar. So you could go with dealer's choice on that one. I'm on, but I do tend to lean Henderson over Shakir. On this question, KJ, there is a good chance if you subscribe to the mentality of these beat reporters, there is a good chance that this organization that is 0-5 with really there's some talent on the roster that they would move them into something. But the problem is, we talk about Schrodinger's cat, Schrodinger's players all the time, is that NFL picks could be anything, right? They're really the evidence that says that, all right, I'm going to trade Breece Hall. And what am I going to get back right now this season? Well, I'm probably going to get back maybe a second, a third, and a fifth. And the Jets will have to deal with what the Jets have to deal with those picks. Do they have a better chance of winning with Breece Hall every week? Yes, they do have a better chance of winning with Breece Hall this week. And I don't necessarily think that Breece Hall is the problem or was the problem in New York. When you look at all these beat reporters and saying, well, they're 0-5, they'll go to a contending team. Well, the Chiefs aren't contending right now at this point in time. They don't look that good. And every report's going, well, Alvin Kamara is going to go to the Chiefs. Breece Hall is going to go to the Chiefs. Oh, Breece Hall is going to go to the Bears. Kamara is going to go to the Bears. So all of these news stories, yeah, it is a very strong likelihood that one of those big profile name brand running backs does go somewhere. Kamara or Breece.
I don't know about that.
There's a strong likelihood that one of them
goes. Just because ESPN once, it doesn't mean it's going to happen or
depending on contendership. So if I wanted to, and like I said, I always prescribe to the theory that it is good to have extra running backs because when wide receivers get hurt, there's not necessarily a one-to-one transition. But for a running back, there oftentimes is, if there's a lot of running backs on the roster. We have an unfortunate situation with the Chargers, right? But you saw that situation in Carolina pan out. Rico Dowdle was the 1-for-1 replacement. Rico Dowdle smash game, right? You go into Arizona. James Conner, the 1-for-1 replacement was Benson. Benson gets hurt, so now you have to split it up again because the further you go down, the further you have to split it up. Najee would have been the one-to-one replacement for Omar and Hampton, but they're both hurt, so now you have to split it up. When I look at a guy like Isaiah Davis, Braylon Allen is hurt. Isaiah Davis was third. Is he going to be the guy, and are they going to split it? Or would
that was happening. It's like you wouldn't cut these guys to go get Fidel.
Troy Franklin, Bashal Tune, and Isaiah Davis, I'm not starting any of them on a week-to-week basis. Troy Franklin could take on a bigger role as the season goes on in for Denver. I don't think Bashal Tune, as much as I love Bashal Tune, as much as I love his speed.
If ETN goes down, Tutin's a league winner.
I don't think that he has, and this is where I would ask you, right? Who do you think out of those running backs, KJ, who do you think, if the one goes away, who do you think would have the better season? And would you rather make that decision now, or would you rather make that decision 3-4 weeks down the line? Because Troy Franklin most likely isn't sniffing your lineup right now. So the questions you have to ask yourself is, would you rather have these two bench running backs and the chance that they would pop off, or would you rather have Troy Franklin on your bench knowing that you'd be kind of mad that if he pops off? I think I'd take the two running backs and dump Troy Franklin. I think that that's not a bad call, considering all the things that we know about fantasy football.
I don't want Isaiah Davis. I think he's a waste.
It's fair to assume that. Jesse, with Nico on a bye, who would you start between Bourne, Dobbs, waiting to see if I can get Golden off waivers? Jesse, this is really simple for me right now. I'm on Romeo Dobbs.
Yeah,
I love Kendrick Bourne's situation.
I might be on Dobbs over Golden.
I'm on Dobbs over Golden as well. And I explained this why on Monday when we were looking at DFS lineups, right? And for everybody asking questions in the chat, we see all the questions, we see all the comments. We are going to clear through this deep dive and then get back to the chat. We do answer all questions and comments here at Local Football Flavor. If you don't hear it, then you got to go watch us on replay. So when I look at this question here and I see Dobbs, one of the things that I think is fascinating about Romeo Dobbs, right, is that we know that Romeo Dobbs is a player. and there was big jokes about his Guardian helmet, and that, that's why you can see him better, because, it is what it is, right? But when I look at Romeo Doubs, I'm going to read you a list of names, and you're going to be really surprised when it comes to the red zone usage. You ready? Devontae Adams, George Pickens, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Keenan Allen, Michael Pittman, Jalen Waddle, Romeo Doubs, Troy Franklin. Those players over the course of the last 4 weeks have seen higher than 6 targets. The other player was Hunter Renfrow. Have seen higher than 6 targets in the red zone. When I look at Romeo Doubs and you look at how many yards in the red zone, these are the players that you see. You see, where's Romeo at?
Puka's not on that list?
Oh, Puka is on this list in terms of targets, but he is much lower down on this list. He has 5 total targets. Okay. So when I look at Romeo Doubs is not getting a lot of yardage, but he has 4 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. And to me, and that's on 4 receptions, by the way. 4 receptions, 4 touchdowns on 6 total targets. So that type of touchdown equity is crazy, right? And you would have to ask yourself that this is not going to be able to kick up. He caught 3 of those touchdowns against Dallas. Facts. Those are all facts, right?
He's also playing the Bengals.
When you look at it, he's playing one of the worst defenses in the league. Then you go to tight ends, and you see Tucker Kraft has 5 targets in the red zone, 4 receptions, 2 touchdowns. And then you look and you see Josh Jacobs, okay? And Josh Jacobs is sitting there, and Josh Jacobs has 4 rushing touchdowns in the red zone. This is a team that can move the ball against an offense that can't stop you from moving the ball. I think that it's very reasonable and a very smart decision. While you might not see Romeo Doubs accumulate a lot of yards this matchup, and you might not see him accumulate a lot of receptions this matchup, he has great touchdown equity and an offense that is proving that they are going to score and they're going to move the ball. This is a bad defense. Romeo Doubs is a definite play for me this week, even over Golden, because Golden right now is a yardage play. If Golden plays, he's going to get some yards and he's going to get receptions, but it's going to be scary because there's probably not going to be a lot of touchdown upside unless he banks one for a long touchdown, which he absolutely could in this game. So if you have bonuses for first downs, if you have bonuses for all of this stuff, Golden could potentially be a smash this week. But Romeo Doubs and Tucker Kraft and Jacobs have so much touchdown equity in this offense. It's crazy. So for that reason, I'm on Doubs, but I don't think that Kendrick Bourne is a bad play. We just saw Mac Jones lean on him on a Thursday. And if these wide receivers are not healthy and they're trending to not be healthy again, you could reasonably think, hey, Kendrick Bourne could probably be in another smash spot against a defense who is having a hard time stopping wide receivers.
Yeah.
And I think both are probably going to see a lot of people's lineups this week, if I'm being brutally honest with you. And I don't think that either of them are bad plays, but I would just be aware of the Juwan Jennings injury. And here's the thing, ready? This is the fun fact that you need to know to make this decision, because this is insanity. This is how bad the Buccaneers defense plays against wide receivers that are the wide receiver 1. 11 targets per game. Okay. They give up 11 targets per game to the wide receiver 1. And again, you just saw JSN smash. You've seen Devonta Smith and other players smash against them as well. I believe it was Devonta that game. So you look at it and you're like, that's good. I'm playing both of these guys this week. I'm playing both of them. I'm throwing both of them in the DFS lineups. I'm playing both of them. They have a very low floor. That they are like ceiling. In my estimation, when I look at the stats, when I look at the numbers, they scream ceiling to me. Like, we were sitting here last week and saying that Kendrick Bourne might be a good play. Eventually, people didn't land on him, right? Is that Kendrick Bourne right now is projecting at around 8 points. That's only because Jennings is slated to play. Okay. If Janet, or that's what, because Jennings is predicted to play. Okay. When you look at Juwan Jennings' numbers here, he's projecting to get 10 points, but his ceiling's around like 18 points. You can easily flip that to Kendrick Bourne. Then you go off against Dobbs, right? The implied point total for Dobbs is crazy. Their implied point total is around like 29, and he's projecting to get about 13 points with a ceiling of 18. So I think both of the plays are good plays, and that's assuming that the injuries stay where the injuries are. If the injuries don't move, like if they're still injured, I'm probably starting both of these guys. How do you feel about that, Joe?
Again, dude, I'm all in on Dobbs. I think that the value there.
You have been on Dobbs for a while now.
I've been on Dobbs since the offseason. But again, the biggest part here is we're talking about a 1 week offset because Nico's coming back in regardless after this.
Yeah.
Give me Dobbs, give me the all or nothing, and then we go from there. But Bob, it is time for us to jump back into quick hitters.
That's
and we
what you do know about Dobbs, though, is because of that touchdown equity, you could easily slide him in, and if he fades, he fades. But he does.
So here's the thing. My suicide pick for the week is the Steelers. I'm clear on that. I think, favorite spread over-under combo for the week is the Bengals and the 14 and the over. And you always take the points in a shootout, and Joe Flacco will chuck this ball. One of the guys that none of you have asked me about today that I thought we were going to get a bunch of questions about is Higgins. I think Higgins is going off. I think we're seeing stupid points.
I think Jamar
just don't care.
This is a good game to capitalize on, I think.
Yeah. The over and the points, guys. Here. I mean, don't get me wrong. Green Bay's winning it. But
again, if you just walked in and you're like, what are these guys doing? We're talking fantasy football. We're answering all questions here on Thursday. Here at Local Football Flavor, we do answer all questions. So if you don't see the answer to your question, or you didn't hear the answer to your question, feel free to watch us on replay. We will get to all questions. We do help out everybody. So
speed mode, Bob. I don't see another deep dive for a while. Let's blow through these because these are about an hour behind.
I'm considering moving Saquon or ETN now and packaging them with a flex wide receiver for someone. Would Saquon for Bucky, Marvin Harrison be a nice trade, or maybe go for Josh Jacobs or Wilson? Here's what I'm doing. If I have Saquon right now, there are only 3 players that I would want on my team at different positions, right? But there are only 3 players that I would want to trade Saquon into right now. These are the 3. Puka, Bijan, Gibbs. Those are the only 3 players that I would want on my team more than what Saquon.
You value Saquon so much higher than me. I still believe Saquon's about to get hurt.
I do value Saquon higher than you, Joe, but in terms of total upside, like equity and upside, plus he's
you started the show by saying how he's getting no red zone carries. And that to me
doesn't. But the thing
I would so Recon, I like where your head's at. I don't want to get Marvin Harrison at all. You guys documented this.
You want Puka. You're sitting here with Saquon Barkley. Barkley has a name.
Puka.
Saquon Barkley has a name. Saquon Barkley can produce 30 to 40 points if given the opportunities. He only got 6 opportunities last week, plus I think 5 catches. You look at him and you say, those opportunities could come. Maybe they're saving it for a little bit later.
Give an extra piece to get Saquon or to get Puka. If
I'm trading Saquon and say Calvin Ridley for Puka,
or Myers or someone of that ilk, absolutely.
Why not? And then you can move Waddle if you want to, or you can move your other things around. That's something that I'm doing. If I wanted a running back, though, Recon, I'm just sitting there with Saquon. And Saquon plus a piece, you might be able to move into a player or into a guy that thinks that maybe JT's touchdown production will tail off and he won't get to that 16 touchdown mark or 18 touchdown mark. You could buy into that. But again, I'm buying into Bijan because he already had the bye week. I'm buying into Jacobs. He already had the bye week. It's going to cost you a little bit more because of that, but I'm not selling into that unless I got more pieces back. Nick, would you
rather trade Pollard and Parasol for someone like Judkins and Dowdle? I'm trying to justify my running back rooms Genty, Pollard, Warren. Yeah,
if I'm trading Ricky Pearsall and Pollard,
getting Judkins is a major win, regardless of how you do it.
I absolutely want to try to get Judkins, but the problem is this isn't going to get you Judkins for some.
It's not going to get you Judkins.
If
you got to get better than Pearsall.
If you offered this to me for Judkins, even though I like Pearsall a lot, I need somebody a little bit different than Tony Pollard. There are other leagues though where this might work. This is a good starting point to ask for Judkins for people that don't believe in Quinshon Judkins or don't believe in the volume that he's getting. I don't want Dowdle for this trade. I would want Dowdle for some other trade, right? But I wouldn't want them for this trade. If you could do a lower end trade to get Rico Dowdle, knowing that Chuba's going to come back at some point in time, maybe Rico will have a good rip in this offense. Again, we looked at the schedule. Rico's going to have 3 out of the next 5 games are going to be probably elite smashes potentially. You look at it and you say, okay, does that solidify me any? Not really. Judkins solidifies you. So I'd do everything I can to go get Judkins. If I had to give up Pollard and Pearsall to do it and then add something else, I might even do that. And people will think, oh, that's crazy, but Judkins is good right now. Recon, start Jordan Mason this week or Evan Ingram. How do you land on that, Joe?
This is going to be the first time I've said this, but I'm going Mason. The volume has started to speak for itself, and Ingram isn't getting it.
And that's fair. When you look at, Mason isn't like super duper sexy. And the question is here, maybe I have this wrong here. You're not starting Mason this week. You can't because they're on a bye. So this is a Mason Taylor question. No. This is a Mason Taylor question. I thought it was a Jordan Mason question. My bad.
Oh.
Names, right? So Mason Taylor on Ingram. Yeah, I'm on Mason Taylor because of the volume. Recon. Sorry about that. Recon, also start 3. Waddle, Ladd, Rashad, Ridley. I think I'd land on
Ridley's the one I'm benching.
I'd land on Waddle. I think that Ladd in this game will probably get a good amount of targets, knowing that they're probably going to pass
out.
Knowing that plays they might not allow plays to develop downfield because they might get to the quarterback quicker. Ladd is definitely more beneficial in that scenario, and so is Keenan Allen. And I like Rashad White this week as well. I do like Calvin Ridley, but for your team, I think I'd land on Waddle, Ladd, and Rashad. All right. Let us go to the next question here. If I should move Saquon or ETN, I don't know who I should be holding on to. I'd be moving ETN, but Saquon will get you the better return. So if I can move Saquon in the Puka, I'd do that. But if I can move ETN and a piece on your team that you have, like a Jacoby Myers or a Calvin Ridley, and I can move into start thinking about, like, how much is it going to cost you? And this is the question I'm going to ask everybody right now. You can put it in the chat if you'd like to. If you have James Cook on your team, what's it going to cost you to get James Cook? Okay. For me,
I offered James Cook and Laporta for Bijan.
For some people, you'll want to get Bijan. I think right now, when we look at these players, right, is that Cook has shown that level of production. He continues to show that level of production. But the problem with ETN is that when you're looking to upgrade ETN, there's no comparable running backs that would be a 1-for-1 move outside of a guy like maybe David Montgomery. You're going to hear me say David Montgomery a lot today, and you've heard me say David Montgomery a lot today because it's a solid play. The team is proving that the week 1 was just a bad week. They weren't prepared. It was a bad week.
Classic Campbell. Once he starts losing, he goes nuts.
And you look at it and you say, well, David Montgomery is getting touches, he's getting looks, and they're going to have some good games on the schedule. If I'm selling ETN, I'm going to have to put a lot together to get a Mondo guy back in return like a Jacobs. But if I'm selling Saquon, I'm only going to have to add another little piece probably to get into a guy like Puka or get into a guy like Gibbs or get into a guy like Bijan if people don't believe that there are better weeks coming for some of these players or that they could tail off, right? Puka's going to cost you a lot, but I think you have the player capital to try to do that. Bronson, trade Derrick Henry for Lamar and Trevion Henderson. I already have Ramondre though. Or trade Derrick Henry and DJ Moore for Lamar and Swift. 2-quarterback league. Other quarterbacks are Allen, Kyler, and Daniel Jones.
Give me the one that has Henderson, man. I'm doing that all day. And then when Ramondre finally gets benched, you cut him.
Bronson, who are your other running backs? Before I say yes, definitely. I do like this. I do like it a lot. The first one I
Henderson
like
more than Swift. That's the end of my discussion.
The first one I like a little bit more because, like I said, there's all these reports saying Swift might lose his job. Kamara's on his way out. Breece Hall's on his way out. All this stuff. But I like Travion Henderson there, and I understand that you have Ramondre, and you kind of have to figure out where you want to land there. But I think that first trade is very, very fair. And if I could trot out from week 6 on Allen and Lamar, and then I can move Kyler and Daniel Jones,
you win your league
stuff. I think that you have a league-winning trade right here. It just depends on who you have at running back, and even then, if you want to
Henry for Lamar, period, you do.
Too. You can also send Kyler and Daniel Jones away at another point in time to get better running backs as well. Stafford or Knicks this week? I think I'm on Stafford this week. Stafford has been a top 6 quarterback this year. They won't be able to stop Kyren Williams, I don't think, so that's going to be a play, but it's proving that Stafford likes to throw to Kyren now. Interesting, right? So I think this is going to be another good spot for Stafford. You could easily see 3 touchdowns and 300 yards. Nino, big play bonus, full PPR. Probably sounds nuts, but with all the 49ers returning soon and me needing wide receiver help bad, Jacoby, Diggs, and Alec, I like Diggs there, is sending CMC McBride for Judkins, Pickens, and Addison crazy. It's not.
I would totally do that.
It's not. I don't know if you're getting full compensation at this point in time for CMC, but it's very close. I think the decision that you would have to make, and probably the reason that you're thinking about this a lot, is that McBride-Addison piece, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I absolutely think that like CMC, Judkins and Pickens for a guy like CMC is trades that people have considered that. And people have said, oh, Judkins, Pickens, and Addison for CMC as well. And you're throwing –
I think Judkins the rest of the year is going to outscore CMC by himself. So I want to do that.
Now, you need wide receivers. You said you need wide receivers.
And Pickens and Addison are 2 good ones right there.
Pickens and Addison are good ones right now. This week, making that trade this week, Addison won't help you because Minnesota's on a bye. So I would consider
Pickens is gold because CD's still out.
I would consider how that looks, but I like it, man. I like it. And this is coming from a person who is still really big on McBride. But here's the thing. McBride's not showing any of that 20-point upside. He's being consistently 14, 14, 14, 14, 14.
And without 20-point upside, he's not worth it.
As I said before, there are other tight ends that you can slot in that have that 14-point kind of upside as well with a little bit of a ceiling in addition to that. Theo Johnson, right? David Njoku. Guys that you can get that might still be on waivers. Mason Taylor. It's going to be scary for a minute, but it'll work out for you. That's the right play. Probably makes your team pretty good.
So Recon was 1-4. Recon was 1-4 and had to make some waivers. Here's what he ended up with.
I'm talking with the Hurts, Jacobs, Puka, Garrett Wilson, Keenan owner. They're interesting, some assets. Another person I'm talking with is the Kyler, Breece Hall, Jalen Warren, Zay Flowers, MHJ, Bucky, Jettis, Woody Marks, Darren Waller, and Omarion owner. Obviously, this guy has more pieces. Plus, I was thinking to move Saquon for Bucky plus X as a 2-for-1. So long-term, it would work out for my team better. Yeah, I mean, sure. But I think if you were to go after this guy right here, he has Puka, he has Garrett Wilson, he has Josh Jacobs. You say, I have Saquon, you have Hurts. What's going to get it done, right? Maybe you can pull out Garrett Wilson and something else. Maybe you'll get into Puka. Maybe you'll get into Josh Jacobs here. I like going after this person. Now, this person right here, the pieces here, lot of injury pieces. You said you were 1-4 and you had to make some moves, which is fair.
Yeah, the answer is you got to make a splash, and you probably need to do a 2-for-1. So,
but here's the problem,
I would start by trying to do Garrett Wilson and Josh Jacobs.
If you're 1-4, you can't take on another injury.
And you can't take on Bucky. So, but you might be able to pull out Garrett Wilson and Josh Jacobs, Recon. That would be the conversation I would want to start to see if you can make that happen.
I'd see what it would cost to get Garrett Wilson. I'd see what it would cost to get Josh Jacobs, and I'd see what it would cost to get a guy like Puka as well. Michael, I was able to pull off a trade finally to patch a hole at running back. Very different from what you advised, but happy. Traded Herbert for Monty. Still have May and DJ. Lost Hampton. Still have Genty and Scatterby. Love that. Love that.
I mean, it worked.
I can't fully remember what we did advise, but I do think that a trade like this is a good trade for everybody involved. He gets a top 12 potential quarterback. You get a player that has top 12.
You got the ascending player in the trade, which is what you want every time. Plus, he fills a position of need. Love that.
But May and DJ are going to be useful pieces for you in the long term. So I like this. I think it's a good start for you. And you can play Genty and Monty pretty well. And I think that that's a great start to begin with. When we look here, Santiago, start 2, Dowdle, Michael Carter, and Olave. I am on Dowdle. When it comes to a guy like Olave, he's going to get the looks. The only question is, what is it going to turn into? As I've said earlier about Michael Carter, they are going to have a split backfield again, but Kyler Murray might not be there week 6. I think you can't make the decision on Michael Carter until we know if Kyler Murray is out or not, because the Jacoby Brissett coming in could change things for this rushing attack. I agree with Joe that they do need to continue to run the ball as they are doing, but where this changes is the touchdown equity. So Michael Carter could have more touchdowns if Kyler Murray isn't on the field. Now, Bam Knight or Zonovan Knight, whatever he wants to call himself, is a threat to also get some touchdowns at work as well. So Michael Carter could be an interesting touchdown play. If the Saints are going to win this game, I do think Olave catches a touchdown. So if you do think the Saints can perform adequately or win this game against the Patriots, I think you start Olave and Dowdle. If you don't think that, and you think that Michael Carter could have another touchdown in the works with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, then you start Michael Carter and Dowdle. But Dowdle is definitely a start.
Yeah, that's true. I personally would go Olave. I think that the Patriots are primed for a letdown.
Michael, I wish you the best. Everybody, including myself, is not thinking that the Giants are going to win. Rookie quarterback, first short week for the rookie quarterback against a defense who maybe aren't as good as originally advertised, but still as good as they can be. With lower amounts of weapons, it could be rough. But if they pull this game out, it's going to be because Jackson Dart has a great game. If they win this game,
but Michael, I can't tell you this. I'm taking the 7 tonight, so I don't think they're getting blown out.
Yeah, Recon. If he's only going to give you Jacobs straight into Saquon, then I'd stay away from that guy. Because I'm not swapping Saquon for Jacobs. I like Jacobs.
That's just the guy who doesn't want to trade.
I like Jacobs.
That's the guy who's trying to take advantage of you because you're 1-4. James Cook might not be a bad guy to look for, though.
Yeah, the James Cook owner could be interesting. I also got another offer of sending CMC and Jacoby for Josh Jacobs, Ted, and Franklin. So here's the thing, Nino. Joe will tell you every single time Teteroa McMillan is brought up that Teteroa McMillan is not on his list of guys that he wants. And
he's a hard avoid.
That's fair for him. But I don't think this improves your team. Ted is a target.
That's my point.
Ted is a target earner on his offense. So is Jacoby. But they're both on an offense with struggling quarterbacks. So you'd be trading CMC into Josh Jacobs with the kicker being Troy Franklin. I don't think that's enough for me. I would rather get the Judkins, who has the same kind of volume as Josh Jacobs, right? Plus the 2 wide receivers who have more volume than Ted and Franklin at this moment in time. I am on the other trade rather than this one, to be brutally honest with you.
Yeah.
Teteroa, McMillan, or Waddle rest the season. Then
that's Waddle easy for me, but that's not saying much.
It's Waddle the rest of the season. I have the option to do that swap. Yeah, I'm on Waddle rest of the season. Although Ted's getting targets, it's nice. It's good to see you, Marlon. I saw you on the chat of the video the other day. Multiple trades for you guys. We'll take a look at them, Marlon. Absolutely. So just so you know, guys, we're clearing through the chat right now, and feel free to leave a question in there. We do answer all questions. We're going to try to get out of here probably close to 6 o'clock or a little bit earlier than that. What's up? Start 1 Wan'Dale, Dobbs, or Kendrick Bourne. Also pick one between Pitts or Mason Taylor this week. So out of that grouping of guys, Jonathan, you heard everything we've said. If you've been sitting here listening to us, it's Dobbs, but there is a reasonable reason to start Kendrick Bourne this week. So if you do have an uncertain flex position, Kendrick Bourne could be interesting, but with all the injuries and uncertainty there, I could see Dobbs really panning out this week. In terms of tight ends, this is a much more interesting question. This is the first time in a long time.
I like the volume of Taylor.
That Kyle Pitts has gotten brought up. This is the first time in a long time. Here's the thing to worry about with Kyle Pitts. When facing Buffalo, teams have not utilized their tight end.
Buffalo is a pretty soft defense. People don't think of it like that, and they're able to exploit it. So
over the last weeks of the season, Buffalo has only allowed 2.2 targets to tight ends per game. Now, if you want to know, and we're like, well, what kind of tight ends have they faced, right? Because maybe the tight ends are just bad. Patriots with Hunter Henry, Juwan Johnson, Dolphins with prior to Waller.
Might be the only thing they can cover. And then when that happens, you just never push the ball that way. That right there is just making the argument for me for Mason even more.
It's Mason
So I would
Taylor.
go Dobbs and Mason Santiago.
It's Mason Taylor over Pitts. Thoughts on Dylan Gabriel? Would you start him over Penix in a super flex league? Joe?
Not this week, but potentially later on in the year. I'm still in Penix this week.
I think it's an interesting play. But I think I'm leaning Penix as well. I think it's an interesting enough play, but I think I'm leaning Penix. All right, go to the next one, Joe. I'm looking something up real quick.
So flex 2, Garrett Wilson, Henderson, Chase Brown, and Bill. I'm going Garrett Wilson and Bill.
I'm going Garrett Wilson and Bill too, Quincy. I'm not really, again, shutdown corners can be elite, but if that shutdown corner is not on that player 100% of the time, and it could happen depending on how they scheme this defense, right? Then there's a way that Garrett Wilson could get an explosive play, similar to how he had against the Steelers week 1. We were talking about Joey Porter Jr. being on him. And then all of a sudden, Mike Tomlin goes, yeah, let's cover this guy with Darius Slay. There could be a brain fart moment for a Hall of Fame type of coach. That can absolutely happen. And I think that for that reason, if Garrett Wilson gets a broken play, he's getting a touchdown, right? And then Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is a good play this week for sure. And Chase Brown, maybe with Joe Flacco, things turn around. Maybe.
Marlon, we'll do your deep dive here as we wrap up the show.
But Merritt is in a great spot against the Chicago defense, and I think that you have to start Merritt.
Michael, you nailed the point, man. The Ravens aren't stopping anyone. You play anyone who's playing the Ravens right now.
Fannin or A.J. Barner this week?
Or A.J. Barner this week. Also start 2 of Carter, Henderson, Franklin Vidal, and Travis Hunter.
And Jay, you were with us probably in the offseason as well when I was buying a couple of shares of A.J. Barner, and then they drafted Arroyo, and I stopped buying A.J. Barner shares. Should have kept buying them. So low. He finally got volume last week. Over the last 2 weeks, he's gotten touchdowns. And when you go in and you look at again, where I'm looking at for money yards, right? I'm looking at money yards. I want a tight end that is going to get targets in the red zone. That's what I'm looking for. Over the last 4 weeks, A.J. Barner has earned 5 targets in the red zone, caught 5 balls, 42 yards, 4 touchdowns. While I like Harold Fannin, he's still battling with Njoku. You go A.J. Barner because that's what you want out of a tight end. In terms of this, also start 2. I really don't like that Michael Carter is back on the menu this week. Henderson, Franklin, Vidal, Travis Hunter. Jay, you've heard everything. If you've listened to us this whole episode, you've heard everything that we've had to say about all of these players, right? And Franklin.
I'm probably going Henderson and Hunter.
Henderson and Hunter. Henderson is an interesting play to me this week as well. But when you look at Franklin, and here's the thing that people are trying to think about, right? Is that when I look at a guy like Troy Franklin is the wide receiver 3 right now. The Jets suck at stopping wide receiver 2s, wide receiver 3s. They're really terrible at stopping everybody. So if you're looking at Troy Franklin out of this grouping of players, I think it's interesting. For me, I'd be on Travis Hunter and Henderson. Because, again, a competitive matchup in Seattle is they're going to make sure that Travis Hunter gets enough play on offense this week to be productive. There's no way they can win that game with Travis Hunter just on defense. He's going to have to play offense. And he
looked good on offense last week, too.
So I'm on
Travis. So I need running
Hunter.
back help bad, starting the Bucky White combo and Mason. I traded Adams for GMC and Diggs. Did I get enough back?
Yeah, you got plenty back. Adams, here's the thing, guys. Devontae Adams is our boy. You will not hear us besmirching Devontae Adams almost ever. We will buy as much Devontae Adams as we can possibly get most weeks. But this trade for you, needing running back help, you have Mason on a bye, you need a start this week. JCM is in a smash spot. The other thing is, Diggs is putting up just as many targets as Devontae Adams with less touchdown equity than Devontae Adams, okay? He's one of the highest target. Devontae Adams we know this is the highest targeted red zone guy in terms of offensive numbers here. So when you look at it, did you get enough back? You absolutely got enough back. That's a great trade. Quincy, start 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 2 flex. Derrick Henry, Dobbins, Pollard, JCM, Spears, Vidal. So just starting there, my 2 running backs are going to be Dobbins and JCM. That's where I'm starting at with that discussion. My 2 running backs are going to be Dobbins and JCM. Then going to the wide receivers here, you have QJ Jacoby, Higgins, Hunter, Bourne. Out of those wide receivers, I'm starting Higgins and Myers. Then my 2 flexes, pending injuries. I'd probably go with Kendrick Bourne for the volume if Jennings isn't playing. And QJ is very interesting, but I'm looking at his injury, and I'm not sure. Hamstring injury could flare up in the middle of the game.
You got to go with King Henry. They're going to force him the ball as your last flex.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I think Derrick Henry has low touchdown equity this week. He could break off a big run and be elite, but he's just not going anywhere.
That's the thing is you're basically hoping that, and he is King Henry.
I think it's Dobbins and JCM for me at running back. Wide receivers would be T. Higgins and Jacoby Myers. My 2 flexes, I'd land on Kendrick Bourne if Jennings is out, and my other flex would be QJ, but I'm worried about the injury tag, and I'd probably land on Derrick Henry at the end of the day. But Travis Hunter, I just told you why I like Travis Hunter too. I think Travis Hunter is cool. Good upside there with Travis.
So the Dallas fans, the Giants fans hating on the Eagles fans. Love that the world is still
and Marlon, we haven't forgotten about your deep dive. We will get to that deep dive, so just sit tight. I'm 1-4 in a 2 quarterback league. I'm in 2 weeks by grabbing all the quarterbacks off the waiver wire. I turned Browning into Rashee Rice and Rattler plus Marks.
Nice.
To Breece Hall. Also start 2 running backs, Monty, Henderson, White, Hall. So you're in for a turnaround, Smitty. I know that we haven't yet.
Smitty, I'm going on the easy ones on this one. Give me Monty and White.
It's Monty and White, but I do like Breece this week. I told you the multiple reasons why Breece is a good play this week. Rashad White is against a defense that's not proving that they could stop the run either. And Breece Hall is against a defense that's offering a lot of fantasy points to running backs, and that's including Jonathan Taylor's big game. So if you wanted to bench, hold on, Joe. If you wanted to bench Monty because you think that Breece Hall and Rashad White will be more volumetric, I could give you a reason why that's a good play. So for me, Joe, I'm going to change my answer here. I'm going to go Breece Hall and White because of the volume. Monty,
I'm still sticking with Monty.
Game. Monty's going to have a good game, though.
Trading away Breece is a great pick. They could be anything like Breece Hall. Here's the thing. The Jets don't get many things right.
No sense. The Jets
so once they get something right, you can't get rid of it. The Jets are not doing trades.
It just doesn't make any sense. It's so frustrating.
I feel like we've had this question already a couple times.
What's up, Dylan? Good to see you, man. Glad to see you back.
But to give the answer again, for me, it was Rico and Olave.
Yeah, Rico and Olave there for sure. Dylan, would you move Flowers to buy low and AJ Brown? I'm 2-3, and Flowers won't put up Jack with Cooper Rush this week, and Ravens have a bye next week. I would.
Yeah, there's logic in that.
And just know, Dylan, both of these players have their ebbs and flows. There are matchups where these players can be taken advantage of. And this is the thing about A.J. Brown, right? If you own A.J. Brown, we just had a question at the top of the show that was like, should I bench A.J. Brown for Michael Pittman? Sure, you can absolutely do something like that this week. But A.J. Brown, for some people, is just an eternal start. You go in and you ride the highs and you ride the lows. The highs are going to be high. The lows are going to be low. Same thing goes with Zay Flowers. I think I would do that because it puts you in a better position. And looking at your lineup here, you have Fields and Lamar, Bijan, Scadaboo, JCM, Kendre, MHJ, Flowers, Pickens, T. Higgins. If you went out and sold Flowers into A.J. Brown, you're looking at MHJ, A.J. Brown, Pickens, and T. Higgins. T. Higgins could absolutely perform well going forward. You have 3 top tier tight ends right now. Dylan, this is what we're doing. If you want to go back and watch Monday's episode.
No, what I'm doing is I'm taking either Kraft or Waller plus Flowers or Harrison and going to get a stud. That's what I'm doing if I'm you.
I think I'm with you, Joe. What I was just about to say is if you watched us on Monday, if you haven't, go back and watch us. We talked a lot about trading out of tight ends. Wumbo can talk to you about trading out of tight ends too. He had a bunch of tight ends traded out of them. You only need to have one of these guys, maybe 2 if you want to. If you compare Waller, and depending on your league, depending on how many quarterbacks are owned, if you could trade Waller and, when Lamar comes back, maybe you want to trade Kraft or Warren plus Fields for somebody else. Sure, you can absolutely upgrade in a lot of positions. I think that a Flowers plus one of those tight ends could get you a better consistent option at wide receiver to go along with George Pickens. And T. Higgins with Joe Flacco could be a good option going forward. So I'd just stick pat on T. But what I'd do is absolutely take one of those tight ends.
Definitely want to stack back on T because he's going to put up some good weeks here.
One of those tight ends, one of your position players, and upgrade. You might even think about Scadaboo. You might even think about moving Scadaboo, but you might not want to. At the start of every game, Dobb hold down the turbo plus steel button, presses up to turn on big head mode. That's hilarious. I remember that. Big head mode in these games is hilarious. It's actually coming true. Trade Gibbs and Tyler Warren for Bijan.
I think you're paying too much for Bijan. I think you're paying way too much for Bijan.
As a person that owns Bijan, I would accept that. As
someone who owns Gibbs, I would never offer that.
Yeah, as someone who has Gibbs, I probably wouldn't do that. But I could understand why the player ate the bye week and you want to go after Bijan, so you get that little kicker in there. I get it. I get it, but I probably wouldn't do it myself.
Santiago, I love the reference to back in the day. Flacco looks like that guy in the scene of Epic Movie where the quarterback gets split in half. But at least he's going to chuck the ball to Higgins, man.
I'm going to say this now about Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco could be the DFS red herring of the week, but he's 4,000. But what I want to say...
He's already been said he's been starting, Quincy,
right.
so...
But here's the thing about Flacco, guys, is Flacco has shown that he could absolutely get obliterated and put up like 10 points or 9 points, but then he shows that he could put up 22 points. And here's where this is...
he is the adult version of Jameis Winston. He's going to put the ball up like he just don't care.
People have asked, why? Why didn't they go out and get a mobile quarterback? Well, maybe having a statue at quarterback and a statue that can make better decisions than Jake Browning, maybe that's a good play, even if he's only alive for a quarter.
Because it's an overrated coach who doesn't know how to use a mobile quarterback. Let's just be real.
How far does Hampton go down your rankings, missing at least 4 weeks and still having a bye? Maybe only giving you 5 to 7 weeks has to hurt quite a bit. Yeah, he falls down pretty drastically.
He does. That kills his value, but I also think he's definitely worth just putting on your IR spot and winning within your playoffs. He's still a hold for me.
Trade Jamar for K9, Worthy, and Flowers. I wouldn't.
I wouldn't. Unless you're in desperate need of the positions for starters. If I needed over virtually everything.
If I needed a running back, K9 isn't a bad player to get back, and Worthy and Flowers will help your team a lot. But here's the thing. Worthy and Flowers are cut from the same cloth. They are 2 wide receivers that will either do really, really well, be absolutely average, or have smash games. And so these 2 guys, you have to really play the matchups on these 2 guys, and that's not bad. That's part of the game. But Jamar, usually you're going to set it and forget it. But last week I did tell you guys, like Jamar was on the cusp for some people, including myself, be like, I don't know. He turned out had a smash game. He could absolutely have a smash game.
I hope you guys bought him when we recommended it, because he's going to smash games from now on.
Rice and Henderson for James Cook. If
I don't think you'll get Cook for that.
If I had Rashee Rice and Travion Henderson and I was offered Cook,
I would take Cook. I think it's cheating taking Cook on that side. I don't think that's a fair enough trade.
I would want Cook on that side, Quincy.
Absolutely.
0.5 point PPR, flex 1. Breece Hall, ETN, Sutton, MHJ, BTJ. I'm on Breece Hall.
And I'm on ETN. We've been disagreeing this all day.
For all of the reasons that I said earlier about that. Now, that's not saying that Travis Etienne is a bad play either. Again, Travis Etienne is going to be in a game that is going to be very competitive. And Breece Hall and Etienne are not very far apart from each other in the rankings. I would try to find a way to get both of those guys in my lineup, but I know that might not allow it. McLaughlin or Boswell?
Bro, that's all you.
McLaughlin has been doing really well. And when you look at where that game script could be at for Tampa Bay, is there could be a lot of movement of the ball. And you could see Tampa Bay.
And there also could be 17 field goals in Pittsburgh.
There could be 17 field goals in Pittsburgh because of the way these defenses play football. And you could have a Boswell 15-pointer, Boswell 25-pointer game. I think I'm on the Bos, but it's close. I'm on the Bos, but it's very close. If Jennings or Pearsall is out, would you start Bourne over Henderson? I would.
Yes.
I would in a heartbeat. But it depends on if he's out.
Yeah, they have to be out though. Yeah.
I like Addison as a flex play when it is after week 6. Look at my vision, guys. I have Rashad right now. Moving into Bucky's talent just solidifies me down. Asking for Bucky and Jettis for Saquon would be a play I can settle for, and it could work out. If you can get Bucky and Jettis for Saquon, I'd do that. I'd absolutely do that. I don't think I could find a guy that would do that. Or I send Saquon for Jacobs and Hurts. If you could get Jacobs and Hurts for Saquon, yeah, I'd do either of those, Recon. If you're looking,
I would prefer Jettis.
If you're doing that trade, I'd prefer the Jettis side, but I'd absolutely do either of those sides. Looking at what you said, if I'm getting Jettis back, but I'm not doing it if I'm getting back anything less than Justin Jefferson, if you get what I'm saying, right? Yeah, Hurts is fine. I think Hurts would be great. Jonathan, got to decide tonight. Wandale or Michael Carter, full PPR, 1.4 first downs.
Well, then I'm going Carter.
You know what? Joe, garbage time is the thing.
Garbage time is the thing, and Wandale's going to get a lot of it.
I think it's Wandale. Jonathan. Tonight, Wandale. Wandale probably gets you. I think Wandale gets you in a 0.5 PPR.
Although that's
league.
an Eagles fan that we're telling him to start a giant. There just might be some juju there.
I do think Wandale could get 6-7 receptions, 40 yards, which is enough to be startable as a flex position. 0.5 PPR. I've had Love, Puka, Debo, Bijan, HN, Tyler Warren benches, Nick Fields, ETN, Breece, Sutton, MHJ, BTJ, any moves. So what I'd be doing... If you only got
one quarterback, you don't need all three. There's a starting reaction.
I'd be trying, because you're going to have some people that are down bad on quarterbacks right now, I would believe.
I would combine Nix and A-Chain and try to go get Cook.
I would combine Nix and ETN and see what I could get.
Probably the same thing, though. You're still going to get...
You're probably going to get the same thing. I do like that you have Sutton here. Right now Debo and Sutton probably go back and forth in your mind. Bijan and Achane, you're often thinking potentially to start Breece Hall or ETN. Clearing that up by moving. If you were to move,
actually, I take that back. I don't want to get a running back for you. I want to get a receiver.
Say, for example, top 5. If I were to pair Achane and Sutton, how much more would it take you to get to a guy like Puka or CD? How much would it take you to get to Justin Jefferson? Right? You wouldn't want to trade for J-Jeff this week, maybe, but he might be lower cost because you'd be eating the buy instead of the other player. But if I could pair up Achane or Breece Hall, and then pair up with Sutton, who I like Sutton a lot. But if I could pair those up and maybe kick in the quarterback to see what's it going to take to get to Puka, what's it going to take to get to Justin Jefferson, because those two guys right now are elite. They're the elite options at wide receiver right now, notwithstanding any of the other players in the league. But I think that needs to be considered. Z Smitty, I've been on.
Would I trade Sutton and Kamara for Gibbs and Shakura? I would 100% take the Gibbs side.
If I could do that, Ruiz, I would want the Gibbs side. I love Sutton, but again, even if Kamara lands on the Chiefs, they still have Kareem Hunt there. So how much look is Kamara actually going to get? Smitty here. I've been on an all-time trade run recently. I traded Jerry Jeudy for DJ Moore. Hold on 1 minute.
Traded DK for Judkins. DK and Judkins for Roman Kraft. I would rather have DK and Judkins on that side. Then I flipped Wilson, Kraft, Moore for CD and Chase. Hey, anything that ends with CD is all right. So ultimately,
so the full team is Herbert, Bijan, Jacobs, CD, Rome, Bowers, Bill Ridley, Chase Brown, Mason Taylor, Addison Harvey, Brandon Aubrey, Mixon on the IR, 10 main back-to-back champs. Z, I like this. Although I probably would have kept Judkins when you traded him. It probably wasn't as much value to you. Rome and Kraft are absolutely elite options at their positions right now.
Marlon, your questions are going to be our deep dives to end it. You were about 6 out from getting to you here.
Yeah, when I look at Chase Brown is whatever right now.
We need to start flying here, Bob.
You traded Garrett Wilson, you traded Kraft, you traded DJ Moore to get into CD. I don't think it's ever bad an idea to get into CD land. I've gone from hating my draft to hitting on a few pieces, moving them around, and getting the most stacked team in the league. This is what you want to do. This is the ideal scenario. This is what you want to do. Traded for CD and Rome without giving up any of my top 3 picks in Bijan, Jacobs, and Bowers. That's the way to do it. If you can get that done, get it done, right? TS, for this question here.
This week I'm on Monty, bro.
I'm on Monty this week too because of the Kamara injury. Check back on Saturday with that injury, and you could flip it to Kamara because the matchup isn't fantastic for Monty, but it's good enough. Would you all trade London and Genty and Waller for Bijan? If this was offered to me, I would highly consider it. From your perspective though, would you want to do it? Would it be enough? I wouldn't do it this week. I think that Genty has a good game this week and gives you more value the next week. So I think that maybe I'd wait to do this and see.
Yeah, you do it next week. You might not have to include London.
Yeah, that's what I'd do. Because if you have Rice, Sutton, Debo, and Igbuka, London is kind of just fuel for the fire, and you can trade him for some other piece. But if you could go and you have Cook and Judkins and Hampton, if you can go, Jesse, and you could put, say, Genty.
Well, that being said, he might not be playing Genty this week. If you could put Bijan, these guys all might be bench players.
Well, that's why he asked about it. He asked Genty, Cook, and Judkins.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for. If you trade me 3 guys that are borderline starters for Bijan, I would just get it done. I think I'm okay with that.
It's a
if I
good
was the Bijan guy, I would want more though. I would never do a 3-for-1 and being the guy selling the one.
It's a good trade. You've offered a good trade. The question is, do you want to give up Genty this week to make your decision easier and put Bijan into your lineup and Cook, or Bijan and Judkins like we talked about?
Well, they're all 3 will be playing, yeah.
I think I'd hold off on Genty. I think I'd wait until Genty spikes another week. With the spike week potentially coming this week, you could sell it high. But you're selling that spike week. You're saying to your league mates, you're saying, I think Genty's going to spike this week. You can have that spike week this week. I will give you that spike week plus Drake London to get Bijan. I don't think you should have to offer Waller in a trade like this. I think those 2 pieces should be at least considerate. Waller's a nice throw in though, as to get it done. You know what? Yeah, I mean,
do it. They're all basically bench or borderline starters for you for Bijan. Do it. So Monty for Scatterbo, I'm going Monty, man.
Yeah, I'm on Monty too. Yeah, Marlon, we got the message. Got it. We're going to clear through it. You will hear everything, Marlon. Choose 2 flexes. Henderson, Swift,
So, Don,
Jennings.
this is straightforward. If Jennings healthy, I'm going Hendy and Jennings. If Jennings not healthy, you can't pick him.
Yeah. And then you have to just land on the other 2 by association. Was thinking about a big honker of a trade that's like Achane plus Adunze plus Adams plus Diggs for JJ, London, and Hampton. It's the team with Pacheco, RB2, and no running back 3, and Hurt, Pearsall, and JMO, who's boomer bust. Don't know if they accept it, but if I were his side and having to start Pacheco and JMO doing nothing, and Pearsall and having Kittle and Juwan coming back, I feel like I'd rather have the safety of the other side. Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts there, and I actually don't think you're going to have to move that many parts to get those 3 players. If you were to say,
you kind of do. You got to make it look balanced. Just that's how people see it. I'm okay with that.
I like it enough. I do like it enough because it clears up a lot of lineup decisions for you.
Yep.
But I do think I'd start with 3 of those guys instead of adding in the 4th guy. You decide if you want to take out Adams or Diggs, and then try to push it through with 3 guys for 3 guys instead of 4 guys for 3 guys. The Hampton injury, plus you got to sell it as, hey, I'm eating these 4 weeks on injury reserve plus the bye, and I'm giving you startable level talent right now. I'm giving you Devin Achane right now. So you gotta give me more. So that more piece is that JJ in London. And I think you can get away with offering 3 of these players and you don't have to offer.
Yeah. And Wumbo, if I were you, I'd keep Adams, but I know you love Diggs. Yeah, Michael, and I appreciate you liking us, giving the comments a love on the stream. Make sure you guys all click like and subscribe. Marlon, you're on our last deep dive of the night.
Yeah, before we get to that, though, I just kind of want to say about Scadaboo. Scadaboo's volume is going to be good, right? And what we're looking at here, Scadaboo.
They get first downs.
Again, Scadaboo is a player that against Philadelphia could absolutely get 16 total touches and do a lot with those total touches. He's probably going to
try to run through everyone and get broken by Carter.
He's probably going to touch the ball about 18 times in that game. Now, when you look at Monty, the Chiefs are theoretically first in, against running back ones in the league, offering about 12 carries a game. If you look at a guy like Gibbs, right? But when you look at Monty, for example, who's like the designated running back 2, you see that matchup shift. Okay. You see that matchup shift where, that looks at receiving yards. But if you combine those 2, Monty is a good enough play. Again, Michael, if you're looking for a volume play, it's probably going to be Scat. If you're looking for the heavy volume play, it's probably going to be Scat. But if you're looking for potential with touchdown upside, it's probably going to be David Montgomery, because there's a chance that they don't give him the ball in garbage time. There's a chance that they go out and they put, Tracy out on the field during garbage time. So hopefully that helps. Steve, we'll get your question here after we clear up Marlon's deep dive. Marlon's been waiting quite a bit, and we're going to close questions there, guys. So we're going to close questions with Marlon's and Steve's right here. So no more questions in the chat. We're going to answer these out and we're going to clear it out. Deep dive, 10-man PPR. My team is quarterback Josh Allen, running back CMC, Josh Jacobs, Genty, Benson, Kendre Miller, wide receivers Roma Dunze, Devontae Adams, Chris Godwin, Khalil Shakir, Cooper Kupp, tight ends are Bowers and Pitts. We look at it and we say, the deep dive is considering the state of my team. Which should I trade? I have received offers of CMC and Godwin for Derrick Henry, Garrett Wilson, and Waddle, or trade 2 CMC and Godwin for JSN, Waddle, and Trevion Henderson. So go back up to that team again there. So you have CMC, Jacobs, Genty, Benson. Okay.
So running back is the spot that you need something in return if you move CMC. That's my first takeaway from looking at these trades. If you get rid of CMC, you need to get a running back in return. To me, it's the weakest part of this roster. So I am more inclined, in fact, I would do the first trade. Give me King Henry, Garrett Wilson, and Waddle. And here's the reason why. This is about the lowest point King Henry will be because of the perception that everything is out in Baltimore. They're going on their bye next week. And then Baltimore's going to come back with Lamar And their schedule is so soft, they're going to win like 7 out of 10. And King Henry's going to be the driving force there. I like the idea of having the choice between Waddle and Garrett Wilson. I think that given the injury state of Godwin, you're probably going to be net ahead with Waddle. So I would do the first one because I like King Henry way more than Travion, given what we know in this second.
Okay. Hold on 1 minute. When I look at this, I like both of these, but I like them for different reasons. And there's a couple of things that you're probably thinking about when you look at this. Right now, JSN's volume is elite. And when you look at Garrett Wilson and you say, how long will the Jets be able to keep this up? All right. You're looking at this and saying to yourself, okay, looking at the next few weeks, the Jets are getting the Broncos, the Panthers, the Bengals, the Browns, the Patriots, the Ravens, the Falcons, the Dolphins. Out of all of those games, the 2 games that probably make you the most scared if you're a Garrett Wilson owner are this week's game against the Broncos and then the Falcons game. After that, it's cake. Okay? Mm-hmm. And we know that Garrett Wilson will get good volume. And Joe talked to you about why it's probably a decent enough time to buy on Derrick Henry if your team allows it. But if I'm looking at the other trade, right? If I look at your team in totality, you have Jacobs, you have Genty. So it's not a necessity that you go and grab Derrick Henry. So you're asking, well, all things the same, you're looking at it and saying, well, JSN and Garrett Wilson from a volume standpoint are essentially very, very similar. We've had JSN spike more 20-plus point weeks than Garrett Wilson, but Garrett Wilson has been very, very stable, Marlon. So in my perspective, when I look at stable with volume, plus I'm getting Waddle in both deals, so that doesn't even matter, right? That doesn't even matter. So just on the framework of this looks like CMC and Godwin for Derrick Henry and Garrett Wilson, or CMC and Godwin for JSN and Travion Henderson. Is JSN that much more valuable than Garrett Wilson? Probably not. Is Derrick Henry much more valuable than Travion right now? You could say that their value is probably the same right now, the way that these offenses are playing these players. But you look at where could that uptick in talent go? While I believe in Travion Henderson, Derrick Henry with a healthy Lamar Jackson will be good enough again, right? That he will put up numbers very similar to Travion Henderson, if not exactly the same or better. And then you look at it and you say, well, I'm getting Garrett Wilson. I would look at JSN's schedule, but Wilson's schedule looks very juicy. Okay. So you look at it and you say, all right, I think that trade pretty much sums it up that it's a good trade. If I'm getting Derrick Henry, Wilson, and Waddle, and especially because I don't have to start Derrick Henry right now, right?
Yeah, that's the other part of it.
Right now, I have Jacobs and I have Genty, and I'm starting them this week in smash matchup spots. And I can sit Derrick Henry until after the bye. Then after the bye, I have 3 running backs that could potentially be 2 touchdown plus players a week. And if Derrick Henry starts to perform well, then I can move Ashton Genty, right? And
which you're going to want to do anyway. That's why I love this. Travion's going to put you at a question mark, and the Genty wall's coming. Henderson or King Henry doesn't. Give me the King Henry one, dude. That's all I would do that.
I would do that first trade because of the Garrett Wilson Waddle as the kicker in there. And Wumbo, you asked here, appreciate it, Michael. Appreciate it. So when we look at this,
Wumbo, you missed what we were saying. We weren't saying swap out Diggs for someone else. We were saying offer the trade just without Diggs or Adams, because you're just all the injury time of Omarion. You shouldn't be giving the extra piece on top of it.
Yeah, I would say, hey, I'm willing to offer you these 3 guys, and if the guy wants Addison or Diggs, you could offer it. But I would just start with 3 pieces for 3 pieces. If I had to move to 4, I'd move to 4. But you're eating a lot of that injury time for Omarion, and you're baking in the value of JJ right now. As it goes here to this question, Steve, it's Waller. Waller is the start this week. Pitts is in a terrible matchup. Ingram's not getting volume. And Steve, since Bucky's out, do I start Pollard or Charbonnet for my running back 2?
You got to start Pollard.
I know you jumped in late, but if you go back and watch the rest of the episode, I gave you reasons why Charbonnet would be a good enough play this week. And there are reasons why Joe gave why Pollard would be a good enough play this week. I think both are not good plays. I don't think either of these guys are good plays. I think their ceilings are probably 10 to 12 points. And that's if they get a touchdown. They're not really great plays for me. So if you're looking at who's going to dominate the volume, it's probably going to be Tony Pollard. He has a very strong likelihood to get a touchdown if they're able to move the ball against the opposing defense. So you could probably land on Pollard at the end of the day. But Charbonnet's on a team that's going to be in a more competitive matchup, and that's why I'm on Charbonnet, because the matchup will be more competitive. Wumbo, I saw a funny tweet a few weeks ago about Scatteroo. It was like Scat every time he has the ball. Then a gif of that giant troll with a piece of a statue strapped to his head, headbutting the wall. I saw that too, and I laughed a lot. It was hilarious.
So last question here, Michael. If you want to start the only reason you would bench Devontae is if your Giants are going to get blown out so much that they're not going to run the ball. And I leave that one up to you in the faithful blue heart of a Giants fan.
So when you go into next week, guys, these are things we're going to be thinking about. We're going to be thinking about player capital. We're going to be looking at those red zone touches. We're going to try to get those trades done before everybody's trade deadlines. Keep your eye on the waiver wire as well. There's probably going to be some gems coming out this week. So our show comes on next Monday, 3:45, next Thursday at 3:45 as well. Good luck this week. We'll see you later. And thanks for joining us here at Local Football Flavor.
That's right.